The charge nurse stood at the foot of my hospital bed with my discharge papers pressed against her chest and said, "Natalie, I've called all 3 people on your approved escort list. Nobody is coming." At first, I thought the anesthesia had made me misunderstand her. My name is Natalie Green, and I was 33 years old when this happened. If you've ever been the reliable person nobody thinks they have to protect, you'll understand why I stayed quiet. Please like this video and subscribe. I touched the bandage low on my neck. My throat hurt when I swallowed, and the room still seemed to tilt slightly whenever I turned my head. "What do you mean? Nobody?" The nurse moved closer. Her name was Karen. I remembered that because she'd introduced herself twice while I was coming out of anesthesia. "Your mother answered," she said. "Your father answered. Your sister answered." I explained that you can't leave alone after anesthesia. I explained that someone has to sign you out and stay with you tonight. I looked toward the chair beside the window. My overnight bag sat there with my coat folded across it. That chair was supposed to have a person in it. Did they say how long they'd be? Karen didn't answer immediately. She glanced at the open door, then back at me. "They're at your sister's baby shower. I know where they are." I said it too quickly, as if knowing the location made the situation less embarrassing. The surgery had been scheduled for the same afternoon as Alyssa's shower. Everyone knew that. My surgeon's office had offered me that date after another patient canceled. If I didn't take it, I would have waited another 6 weeks. My mother had promised she'd leave the shower before gift opening. My father had said he would keep his phone on the table beside him. Alyssa had told me there would be so many relatives at the shower that nobody would even notice if one person slipped away. Now Karen was standing there, telling me every one of them had refused. "Maybe they don't understand that I'm ready," I said. "My mother probably thinks you mean later. I told her you were medically cleared for discharge." "What did she say?" Karen's expression changed. It wasn't dramatic. She just stopped holding my gaze. "The calls go through our recorded discharge line," she said. "I documented that no escort was available. We can keep you overnight." That was the first time I heard the word recorded. I didn't ask what my mother had said again, not then. I was too tired, and Karen already looked uncomfortable enough. I turned my phone face down on the tray table. There were messages waiting from the family group chat. The newest one was a photograph of Alyssa sitting in a flower-covered chair with both hands under her stomach. My mother stood behind her. My father was holding one end of a pale yellow banner. Under the picture, Alyssa had written, "Almost gift time." That was the moment I stopped believing someone was simply running late. To understand why I still expected them to come, you have to understand what my role had been in our family. I worked as an event sales manager at the Summit House Hotel on North Tejon Street in Colorado Springs. I'd been there since 2014, long enough that I knew which ballroom doors stuck in dry weather and which vendors needed 3 reminder emails instead of 1. I could walk into a room with 200 place settings and notice one missing water glass before the banquet captain did. My parents loved telling people I was organized. They said it like organization was something I'd been born with, like brown eyes. They never mentioned how often I'd learned it by cleaning up after them. My younger sister, Alyssa, was 30. She was the one our family celebrated. I was the one who made sure the celebration happened. When Alyssa got engaged, I built the guest list. When my father needed forms for his retirement benefits, I printed them, marked the signature lines, and drove them to my parents' house. When my mother forgot the password to her patient portal, she called me from her kitchen and kept me on speaker while I reset it. Alyssa could forget to answer for 3 days, and my mother would say, "She has a lot going on." I could answer in 3 minutes and still hear, "What took you so long?" Most of it was small enough to excuse. That was how it worked. No single request looked unreasonable on its own. The retirement dinner was larger. My parents, Diane and Craig, were retiring within months of each other. My mother was leaving a medical billing office. My father was finishing his last year with a commercial heating company. They wanted one dinner for relatives, old coworkers, and friends. They also wanted the Pikes Peak Ballroom at Summit House. The ballroom had tall windows facing west. On clear evenings, the mountain turned pink just before sunset. My mother had attended a charity dinner there and talked about it for weeks. It would be perfect, she told me. Not too showy, but still special. It was absolutely showy. That was why she wanted it. The public package was beyond what they planned to spend. As an employee, though, I could sponsor certain family events. The discount was substantial because I became the internal host. My name stayed on the agreement. I handled coordination, made sure deadlines were met, and accepted responsibility for keeping the event from becoming extra work for the hotel. I explained that part at my parents' kitchen table before I signed anything. "This isn't just me giving you a coupon," I said. "I'm attaching my employee status to the dinner." My father barely looked up from the menu packet. "You do this every day, for clients, during work hours." My mother slid the agreement toward me with a pen laid across the top. "And this one is for your family." Alyssa was sitting beside her, scrolling through shower decorations on her phone. "Can we pick the same shade of gold for both events?" she asked. "Then whatever Mom buys can be reused." I looked at her. "They're different venues." "I know, for signs and little things." My father tapped the package total. "This is the discounted amount, right?" "Yes." "And it stays that amount?" "As long as I remain the employee host and the payment deadlines are met." My mother smiled as if the serious part had ended. "We always meet our deadlines." They didn't. I met them. I signed the employee host agreement because I wanted their retirement dinner to be good. That's the plain truth. I also knew refusing would become its own family story. Natalie has access to a beautiful ballroom, but she won't help her parents. Natalie cares more about hotel policy than family. The agreement went into the Summit House contract system under my employee login. I emailed them a copy and put every payment date on my calendar. Then I went back to work. 2 weeks later, my surgeon's office called. I'd had a thyroid nodule monitored for nearly a year. It had grown, and the testing still couldn't give a clear answer. My surgeon recommended removing the left half of my thyroid. He called it a thyroid lobectomy, and he explained it in a calm voice while pointing at a diagram of a neck. It wasn't expected to be a long hospital stay. If everything went normally, I would go home that afternoon, but I'd be under general anesthesia, so the hospital required an adult escort. That person had to collect me, sign the discharge paperwork, take me home, and remain available overnight. The first date offered was the day of Alyssa's baby shower. I said no immediately. The scheduler paused. "The next opening is about 6 weeks later." I looked at my work calendar. The later date fell during a convention week at the hotel. It also meant 6 more weeks of waking up at night and touching the small swelling in my neck. "Can I call you back?" She gave me until the end of the day. I called my mother first. "The shower starts at noon," she said. "What time would you be released?" "They won't guarantee a time." "But roughly?" "Probably late afternoon." "Oh, that's easy. We'll work around it." I could hear paper rustling on her end. "Mom, I need one person who won't be drinking and won't leave their phones somewhere. I'm not drinking. You're hosting. Alyssa's friends are doing most of it." That wasn't true. My mother had spent 3 weeks discussing napkin colors. I called my father next. "I can get you," he said. "Your mother doesn't need me there for the whole shower. Are you sure?" "Natalie, it's a room full of women opening tiny socks. I can leave." Then Alyssa called me after Mom told her. "You have to take that surgery date," she said. "We'll figure it out. I don't want the whole day turning into a fight over who has to leave." "It won't. If Mom starts saying she needs Dad for loading gifts, I need you to back me up." "I will." "And if nobody else leaves, will you?" There was a pause. "I'm the person the shower is for." "I know. I'm just saying it might look strange." That answer should have settled it for me. Instead, Alyssa quickly added, "But somebody will get you, obviously. You're having surgery, obviously." I called the scheduler and accepted the date. Over the next week, I asked my family 3 separate times to decide who would be responsible. They kept refusing to name one person. My mother said, "We're all responsible." My father said, "Whoever's free first." Alyssa said, Why are you making this so formal? Because I worked in events, I knew what happened when everybody was responsible. It usually meant nobody was. The night before surgery, I went to my parents' house on the north side of town. My mother had asked me to bring updated place cards for the retirement dinner. Alyssa had added several guests without checking the room count, so I'd spent part of my lunch break rearranging tables. My father was in the garage. Alyssa was at the kitchen island tying yellow ribbon around small bags of candy. My mother took the place cards and flipped through them. You put Aunt Carol near the windows? Yes, and not beside Marlene. They're at different tables. Good. You know how they get. I waited. My mother kept reading names. Who's picking me up tomorrow? I asked. She looked toward Alyssa. Alyssa kept tying ribbon. My mother said, Your father. From the garage, my father called. I said I could. That isn't the same as saying you are, I told him. He appeared in the doorway holding a screwdriver. Fine, I am. You'll keep your phone with you? Yes. You'll answer an unfamiliar hospital number? Yes, Natalie. He sounded irritated by then. My mother sighed. She's nervous. I'm not asking because I'm nervous. I'm asking because the hospital won't release me alone. And now you have an answer, she said. I entered my father as the primary escort on the hospital form. My mother and Alyssa were listed as backups. I showed all three of them the confirmation screen. Alyssa barely glanced at it. Can you bring the rest of the retirement seating chart this weekend? She asked. Mom wants to show everyone where they're sitting. I'll have stitches in my neck. Not tomorrow. I said this weekend. I put my phone back in my bag. We'll see. It was a tiny answer, but she noticed. Alyssa's hand stopped moving on the ribbon. The next morning, my father texted me before I checked in. Phone charged. Stop worrying. My mother sent a red heart. Alyssa sent a picture of the flower wall and wrote, We've got you covered. I believed them. After the surgery, I woke with a dry mouth, a tight bandage, and the strange feeling that I had missed something important. A recovery nurse gave me ice chips. My surgeon came in and said the procedure had gone as planned. I asked what time it was. A little after 3. The shower had started 3 hours earlier. I asked for my phone. There were plenty of photographs, but no message from my father saying he was on his way. Around 4, Karen began making calls. I watched her step into the hallway with the hospital phone. She came back once to confirm my mother's number. Later, she asked whether Alyssa had another number. The third time she returned, she pulled the chair closer to my bed and told me nobody was coming. At 6, an aide brought me soup and crackers. I couldn't manage the crackers, but I drank half the broth. My mother finally called my personal phone at 6:20. Hi, sweetheart, she said brightly. How are you feeling? Still at the hospital. I know. The nurse called. She called all of you. Well, there was confusion. Dad said he was picking me up. He thought I was. What did you think? She lowered her voice. I could hear people talking behind her. I thought we had more time. Karen told you I was ready. Natalie today got away from us. They just started opening the larger gifts and people came from out of town. I looked at the untouched crackers on my tray. So nobody's leaving. You're safe where you are. That sentence answered more than she intended. A camera shutter clicked in the background. Someone laughed. My mother covered the phone and said something I couldn't make out. Then she came back. We'll talk tomorrow when you're less groggy. She ended the call before I could answer. Karen entered a few minutes later with the overnight admission form. Do you want these same 3 contacts listed while you're here? She asked. I looked at my father's name first, then my mother's, then Alyssa's. No, I said. Take all 3 off. Karen brought me the change form. My hand shook slightly from the medication, so I rested my wrist against the tray and crossed out each name one at a time. When I finished, Karen checked the form and asked, Is there anyone else you want to add? I thought through my contacts. Most of the people I trusted were coworkers, and I didn't want to turn one of them into my emergency contact while I was still groggy. Not tonight. All right, we can update it again later. She didn't push. She took the form and closed the door halfway behind her. I slept badly. Someone checked my blood pressure every few hours. The compression sleeves around my legs inflated and released with a soft mechanical sound. Whenever I woke, I reached for my phone before remembering there was nobody I wanted to answer. At 7 the next morning, my surgeon examined the incision. He asked me to speak, swallow, and turn my head carefully. "Everything looks normal," he said. "Any trouble breathing?" "No." "Any tingling around your mouth or fingers?" "No." He gave me instructions for pain medication and told me not to lift anything heavy. Because the anesthesia restriction had passed and I'd stayed overnight without complications, I could leave without an escort. That was useful, but it also made the whole situation easier for my family. They didn't have to correct anything. Time had solved their problem. My father texted while I was changing into the loose shirt I'd packed. "Want me to come now?" I stared at the message. He lived less than 20 minutes from the hospital. He could have come. I knew that because I'd driven the same route many times when he needed something. I typed, "No, I'm already discharged." He responded with a thumbs up. Not an apology, not even a question about how I was feeling. I booked a car to my apartment on North Tejon Street. The driver asked whether I wanted help with my bag. I said yes, which was harder than it should have been. My apartment was on the 3rd floor of an older building with narrow hallways and a small elevator that shuddered before each stop. I unlocked my door and placed my bag on the floor inside. When I dropped my keys into the ceramic dish by the door, my parents' spare house key landed on top. It was brass, with a strip of green tape around the head. My mother had given it to me years earlier, after she locked herself out while my father was traveling. "You're the sensible one," she'd said. "Don't lose this." I hadn't. The key had been used for much more than lockouts. One Saturday morning, my father called while I was buying groceries. "Are you near our place?" "No, I'm at the store." "Which store?" "The one by my apartment, so you could swing by afterward." "What do you need?" "Your mother thinks she left the curling iron plugged in. Is she with you? We're already halfway to Pueblo." I drove to their house. The curling iron was unplugged in a bathroom drawer. Another time, my mother called while I was at work. "The pharmacy says they can't refill my prescription." "What prescription?" "The blood pressure one." "What did your doctor say?" "I haven't called them." "Then call your doctor. They always put me on hold. Can't you log into the portal?" She didn't ask whether I was busy. She knew I was at the hotel because I'd answered my office phone. I reset her password, sent the refill request, and used the spare key that evening to place the medication on her kitchen counter. My parents trusted me with access because they trusted me to be useful. I had confused that with being valued. I didn't have that sentence yet while I stood in my apartment after surgery. All I knew was that the key suddenly felt heavier than the rest. I left it in the dish. My mother arrived at noon carrying a grocery bag and a vase of flowers from Alyssa's shower. The flowers were pale yellow and white. A little card tied around the vase said, "Welcome, baby." Mom noticed me reading it. "There were so many arrangements left over," she said. "It seemed wasteful not to bring one." She set the flowers on my kitchen counter and began removing containers from the bag. I brought soup, yogurt, applesauce, and those fruit bars you like. "Thank you. I would have come earlier, but your father needed help returning the rented tables." I watched her place the yogurt in my refrigerator. She had changed her clothes, but a streak of gold glitter remained near her left ear. "Did the shower go well?" I asked. The question slipped out from habit. It was my normal way of making things easier for her. "Oh, it was beautiful," Alyssa cried when she saw the cake. "You would have loved the little sugar flowers." She stopped with the refrigerator door open. "I'm sorry, that was insensitive." "Yes." She closed the door. For several seconds, neither of us spoke. Then she began arranging the soup containers by size. "Yesterday wasn't handled well. Who was supposed to handle it? Your father thought I was leaving. He told me he was coming, and I thought he still planned to. Then the tables arrived late, and your aunt needed help finding the building. Everything overlapped. The hospital called him. I'm not saying they didn't." He answered. Mom turned toward me. "Natalie, what do you want me to say?" I want you to tell me why nobody came. I just did. No, you listed things that were happening. Her mouth tightened. We knew you were safe. I touched the edge of my bandage. You didn't know that before the surgery. Of course we did. You were in a hospital. That's not what safe means. She picked up the empty grocery bag and folded it carefully. I came here today, didn't I? There it was. The visit wasn't concern anymore. It was proof for her side. I sat at the kitchen table because my neck had started aching. Mom put the folded bag beneath the sink. Then she noticed a packet of hotel papers on the counter. Are those the dinner menus? Yes. Did you get the revised vegetarian option? I haven't checked. I thought you said you'd have it by Friday. I had surgery yesterday, I know that. I'm asking whether the chef sent it before then. I looked at her. She seemed genuinely confused by my silence. Finally, she said, It's just that people are already asking what we're serving. Then tell them you don't know yet. You know how your father gets when details are unsettled. I did know. He called me until they became settled. Mom picked up her purse. Rest today. We can discuss this when you're feeling more like yourself. She leaned down as if she planned to kiss my forehead. I moved to reach for my water, and she straightened without doing it. At the door, she said, Alyssa feels terrible. She hasn't called. She thinks you're angry. I am. Well, that's why she hasn't called. The logic was so familiar that I almost let it pass. Alyssa avoided discomfort, then her avoidance became my responsibility to fix. Tell her I'm not calling first. Mom's hand stayed on the doorknob. That isn't like you. No. She left. For the rest of that afternoon, my phone stayed quiet. I ate some of the soup. It was from a grocery store deli, still in the original containers. My mother had transferred one serving into a bowl so it looked homemade. That detail bothered me more than it deserved to. The next morning, my father called. You sound rough, he said. I had part of my thyroid removed. I know. I mean your voice. They said it might be hoarse for a few days. Your mother told me you were upset. Did she tell you why? He exhaled slowly. We made a mistake. Which mistake? Not getting the timing right. You told me you were picking me up. I planned to. What changed? There was a lot happening. That's what Mom said. Because it's true. I waited. He filled the silence. The rental company was late. Your mother was running around. Alyssa had people there she hadn't seen in years. Then the nurse called like it was some emergency. It was a discharge call. I understand that now. You understood it when I showed you the hospital form. He became quiet. That was new. My father usually responded to a fact he didn't like by changing the subject. When he spoke again, his tone was flatter. I'm sorry you had to stay overnight. It was close to an apology, but it placed the problem on my overnight stay, not on his decision. Why didn't you answer my messages afterward? I thought you were sleeping. You sent me a thumbs up this morning. I didn't know what else you wanted. I wanted you to come when you said you would. Well, I can't change yesterday. No. He cleared his throat. Your mother said you have some revised menu choices. I closed my eyes. Not today, Dad. The hotel needs them soon, doesn't it? They need them from the host. You are the host. I'm recovering. I'm not asking you to go into work. Just forward the email. That was how every request sounded. Just forward something. Just make one call. Just use the key. Just explain the form. The actual task was always small enough that refusing it seemed petty. I opened the hotel email on my phone. The chef had sent the menu revision the day before surgery. I could forward it in less than a minute. My thumb hovered over the screen. Then I did it. Sent, I said. Great. That helps. He sounded relieved. For 1 second, I felt relieved too. The conversation had returned to familiar ground. I had done something useful, and my father was pleased with me. That small approval still worked on me, even with a fresh incision under my chin. After we hung up, I hated how quickly I had reached for it. Alyssa called that evening. I let it ring twice before answering. Are you awake? She asked. Yes. How bad is the pain? Manageable. Mom said you're mad at everyone. I was left at the hospital. You weren't left. They kept you overnight. That happened because none of you came. I know, but you make it sound like you were sitting outside alone. I looked around my bedroom. The flowers from her shower were on the dresser because their scent had become too strong in the kitchen. What did the nurse say when she called you? Alyssa paused. I don't remember exactly. It was 2 days ago. I was opening gifts. Natalie, there were people everywhere. Did she tell you I couldn't leave without an escort? She said something like that. And what did you say? I told her Mom or Dad would deal with it. They'd already refused. I didn't know that. That was possible. The hospital had called them separately. I didn't know the order. Alyssa continued before I could respond. Mom said you were staying anyway. When did she say that? I don't know. Around the cake, maybe. Before the hospital called you? I wasn't checking the time. I sat up more carefully. Did Mom tell everyone I was staying overnight before the shower ended? She didn't announce it. That isn't what I asked. Alyssa made a frustrated sound. She said the hospital could keep you if nobody got there. She didn't think it was a big deal. That was the first useful answer anyone gave me. My mother hadn't been confused about whether I needed an escort. She'd already decided the hospital could absorb the consequence. Alyssa seemed to realize she'd said too much. Mom was stressed, she added. Don't turn that into something ugly. I didn't turn it into anything. You know what I mean. No, I know what happened. She changed her tone then. It became softer, almost cheerful. Can we not fight right now? I want this period to be happy. I stared at the yellow flowers. Happy for who? Why would you say that? Because I'm asking. You always do this. You hold things in, then suddenly nobody can do anything right. I wanted to argue. Instead, I asked, what do I always hold in? She didn't have an answer ready. After a few seconds, she said, I shouldn't have called while you're on pain medication. I'm not confused. Okay, then maybe call me when you want a normal conversation. She hung up. I placed the phone on the bed beside me. My throat hurt, but the rest of me felt unusually clear. I opened the family group chat and scrolled backward. The week before surgery, my mother had asked me to confirm the shower tables. My father had asked me to print directions for 2 relatives. Alyssa had asked me to check the spelling on favor tags. Between those requests were my messages about the hospital pickup. Each time they had answered with reassurance and no plan. I kept scrolling. Dinner deposits, retirement forms, pharmacy reminders, holiday reservations. Every few days, one of them handed me a loose end. I tied it off, and the conversation moved forward. I had thought those tasks kept me inside the family. Looking at them from my bed, I saw the other possibility. The tasks might have been the only part of me they counted on. I didn't delete the chat or send an angry message. I took screenshots of the pickup promises and saved them in a folder on my phone. Then I opened my calendar and removed the reminder that said, Call Mom, about centerpieces. The reminder disappeared without asking whether I wanted to reschedule it. That pleased me more than it should have. The next morning, I did the same thing with 2 other reminders. One was for my father's retirement benefits call. The other was for the final count on Alyssa's shower thank you cards. I didn't announce it. I just removed them. Then I opened the Memorial Hospital patient portal. My discharge summary was already there. It listed the procedure, medication instructions, and the reason for my overnight stay. Unable to discharge as planned. Approved adult escort, unavailable. That was all. There was no mention of who had been called or what anyone had said. If I hadn't been in the room with Karen, the summary could have meant my ride had car trouble. I used the portal message function and wrote, I'm requesting the complete record related to my attempted discharge, including the calls made to the 3 contacts on my escort form. Before sending it, I read the message twice. It sounded formal, almost cold. Then I sent it. A reply came 20 minutes later from Health Information Management. They needed a signed authorization form. The message included a link and explained that audio records might require additional review before release. I downloaded the form. The first page was simple: name, date of birth, patient number, dates of treatment. The second page asked me to describe the records as specifically as possible. I wrote, "Recorded discharge line calls made after my surgery to Diane Green, Craig Green, and Alyssa Green." Seeing their names together made my hand stop. It looked like an accusation, even though it was only a request. I signed the form electronically and submitted it. A confirmation number appeared on the screen. That was my first deliberate move after leaving the hospital. It was small. Nobody in my family knew about it, and I still didn't know what the calls contained. But the request existed somewhere outside my phone and outside their explanations. At 10 that morning, my father texted, "Can you call the retirement office? They say a page is missing." I read the message and put my phone down. A few minutes later, another message appeared. "Should only take 5 minutes." Then my mother wrote in the family chat, "Your father is getting frustrated. Can you please help him?" I had a hot ache across the front of my neck. I'd taken pain medication and was waiting for it to work. Normally, I still would have called. Instead, I wrote, "The retirement office can tell him which page is missing." My father responded almost immediately. "They already did. I don't understand what they mean. Ask them to email you the form. I hate doing this on my phone. Use the computer." There was no reply for several minutes. Then my mother called. I let it ring. She called again. When I answered, she said, "Are you sleeping?" "No, your father needs help. I'm recovering. You're looking at your phone right now, because you called twice." She lowered her voice. "He gets overwhelmed by government forms. It's his retirement. That's exactly why he's worried about making a mistake." I sat at the edge of my bed and placed one hand beneath my chin before standing. That was how the nurse had shown me to support my neck. Then he should ask the retirement office. He did, and they answered, "Natalie, why are you being like this?" "Like what?" She hesitated. "Difficult." I walked into the kitchen and filled a glass with water. What happens if I don't call? He might submit it wrong. And then, he'll have to correct it. My mother sighed. "You know you can explain these things better than those people. I learned by reading the instructions." Well, not everyone's good at that. That sentence had excused my father for years. He wasn't good at forms. Mom wasn't good with online accounts. Alyssa wasn't good with schedules. I was good at all of it. So every task moved toward me. "I'm not calling," I said. The silence afterward felt physical. My mother spoke carefully. "Are you punishing us?" "No, Dad can handle his own paperwork. This is about the shower. This is about me not doing it. Those are the same thing." That answer was useful too. To my mother, refusing a task required a grievance. I couldn't simply be unavailable. My time belonged to the family unless I had a reason she accepted. "I need to rest," I said. "Fine." She ended the call. I placed my phone on the counter and waited for the guilt to arrive. It did. I pictured my father sitting at the old desktop computer in their spare bedroom. I pictured him clicking the wrong box, getting angry and blaming the website. It would have been easier to call. I knew which office handled his file. I knew which questions to ask. For nearly an hour, I kept reaching toward my phone. I didn't make the call. That evening, my father sent a picture of the missing page. He had downloaded it himself. "Found it," he wrote. I looked at the photograph closely. The page was correctly filled out, signed, and dated. "Good," I replied. He didn't answer. It was the smallest possible success. He had solved one ordinary problem without me. Nothing collapsed. I should have felt only relieved. Instead, I also felt embarrassed. I'd spent years acting as if my family couldn't function without me, partly because they encouraged it and partly because I needed that belief. Being useful had given me a place no one could take away easily. At least that was what I'd thought. 2 days later, Alyssa came to my apartment. She didn't ask first. She knocked and then used the side of her fist again before I reached the door. When I opened it, she looked at my neck. "Oh," she said, "that's bigger than I pictured." The incision wasn't large, but the swelling had turned yellow at the edges. "What did you picture?" "I don't know. A little Band-Aid." She held up a white gift bag. I brought you something. Inside was a soft gray scarf and a container of lemon cookies from the shower dessert table. You can wear the scarf if you don't want people staring, she said. I wasn't worried about that. I would be. She walked into my kitchen and glanced at the yellow flowers. You still have those? Mom brought them. They're dying. The edges of the white flowers had begun to brown. Alyssa carried the vase to the sink and poured out the water. Do you want coffee? I asked. I can make it. She opened the wrong cabinet, then another. Despite everything, I almost laughed. She'd been in my apartment dozens of times and had never made her own coffee. While the machine warmed, she leaned against the counter. Mom thinks you're trying to scare Dad by making him finish his form? She said you wouldn't help. He finished it. That isn't the point. What is the point? The point is, you always help. I looked at her. She seemed to hear herself. Her eyes moved toward the coffee machine. I mean, you're better at those things. So I have to do them forever? No. Then why are you here? I came to see how you're doing. With cookies from your shower. You like lemon? I do. She crossed her arms. You make every nice thing sound bad. I took 2 mugs from the cabinet. I asked you what the nurse said. You wouldn't answer. I answered. You said you didn't remember. I don't remember every word. Do you remember whether you refused to come? Her face changed. I didn't refuse. Did you tell her you were leaving? No, because I wasn't. Then what did you tell her? I told her to call Dad. She had. I didn't know that. I placed a mug in front of her. Did the nurse tell you he'd already been called? Alyssa rubbed her thumb against the handle. She might have. That's different from not knowing. This is why nobody wants to talk to you right now. You're interrogating everybody. I'm asking one question. You've asked it 4 ways, because you've given me 4 answers. She pushed the mug away without drinking. Fine. I knew they'd called Dad. I thought he was dealing with it. How? I don't know. Gonna get you, calling the hospital, whatever. But he was standing there. He wasn't standing beside me every second. You posted a picture with him during gift opening. Her eyes narrowed. You saved the pictures? They're in the group chat. That doesn't mean he was there when the hospital called. No, it means he was still there afterward. Alyssa turned toward the window. Traffic moved slowly on North Tejon Street below us. A delivery truck stopped with its hazard lights on, and someone behind it leaned on a horn. After a moment, she said, Dad told Mom the hospital was being dramatic. There it was. What did he mean? I don't know. He said you were staying there, and they had nurses, so it wasn't like you were stranded. Did you agree? I didn't think about it that way. What way did you think about it? She looked back at me. I thought if it was serious, somebody at the hospital would make that clear. They called 3 people. I know that now. You knew it then. She picked up her purse. I shouldn't have come. Probably not. Her eyes filled, but she blinked before anything fell. That used to end every disagreement between us. Alyssa would look hurt, and I would soften whatever I had said until she could leave believing I'd been unfair. I stayed quiet. She waited. When I didn't rescue the conversation, she said, Mom's right. You're not yourself. Then she left the scarf on the counter and walked out. I locked the door behind her. The next day, I was cleared to work from home for part of the week. I logged into the Summit House system from my kitchen table and answered client emails. Work steadied me because every request had a clear owner. If a client wanted 6 more seats, I showed them the room limit. If a payment was due, the system sent a notice. Nobody accused the calendar of holding a grudge. Around noon, I opened my parents' event file. I told myself I was checking the next deadline. That was part of my job, and I didn't want a missed payment attached to my name. The agreement showed the initial deposit as paid. The catering choices were still incomplete. Final guest count was due soon, followed by the remaining balance. My employee name appeared beside the words, Internal Host. Below that was the agreement history. Every email I'd sent, every revision I'd approved, every note I'd added after speaking to my mother. I had done more than give them a discount. I had built the event around myself. There were notes about table placement, parking instructions, dietary requests, floral delivery, retirement speeches, and the timing of sunset through the ballroom windows. My parents could barely answer a vendor question because I had trained everyone to bring those questions to me. A new note had been added that morning. Client called requesting confirmation employee rate remains protected despite family disagreement. The note was entered by the banquet office. I stared at it. My parents had called my workplace to ask whether our argument could affect their price. They hadn't called to ask whether my incision was healing. I checked the contact log. My mother had called first. My father had called again less than an hour later. Both had been told that questions about employee-host terms had to go through the internal host or the event manager. Neither had mentioned those calls to me. My office phone rang while I was still looking at the note. The caller identification showed my parents' home number. I answered without speaking. My father said, "Before your mother gets more worried, can you confirm something?" "What?" "The hotel said the discount is connected to you. You knew that. We knew you arranged it. I explained the agreement before I signed." He paused. "Well, we need to know you're not going to do anything rash." I looked at the digital copy of my signature. What would count as rash? Dragging a family disagreement into the dinner. I haven't done anything to the dinner. "Good," he said quickly. "That's all I needed." He sounded satisfied, as if I had made him another promise. I hadn't. After we hung up, I opened the health records portal. My request status had changed from received to under review. Beneath it was a newly released nursing note. It listed 3 outgoing calls. All 3 showed live contact, not voicemail. My father had answered the hospital directly. I read that line twice, then saved the note to my phone. Until then, I'd still been trying to get my family to give me a version of the truth I could accept. I stopped. I wanted the version they had given the hospital. The version did not arrive that day. The records office sent another message asking me to confirm that I understood the release might include the voices of other people. I checked the box, signed again, and waited. On Thursday morning, a secure link appeared in my portal. The message said the link would expire after a limited period. It contained 4 files. One was the nursing note I already had. The other 3 were audio files identified by call time. I downloaded all of them to my phone before opening anything. Then I sat at my kitchen table with a cup of tea I'd forgotten to drink. The first recording began with an automated voice saying the call was being made through Memorial Hospital's recorded discharge line. There was a pause, a click, and then my mother answered, "Hello?" Karen identified herself and asked whether she was speaking with Diane Green. "Yes. Is Natalie all right?" "She's stable and medically cleared for discharge. We need her approved escort to come to the hospital." "Oh, I thought her father was doing that. We haven't been able to confirm an arrival time. Can you come?" There were voices behind my mother. Someone asked where the scissors were. My mother covered the phone, but the microphone still caught her saying, "Look beside the gift table." Then she returned. "I'm hosting something for my other daughter right now. I understand, but Natalie cannot be released alone after anesthesia. How long can she stay there? She can't remain in outpatient recovery indefinitely. If no escort is available, she may need to be admitted overnight." "Then do that." Karen paused. "Mrs. Green, are you saying you will not be coming?" "I'm saying I can't leave right now. Her father should be able to handle it. Do you know whether he's on his way? I assume he is." Karen asked for his number, even though it was already on the form. My mother gave it to her. The call ended. I didn't move. My mother's explanation at my apartment had included late tables, relatives needing directions, and uncertainty about timing. On the recording, she hadn't sounded confused. She had asked what the hospital could do instead of her. I played the second file. My father answered on the 4th ring. Craig speaking. Karen introduced herself again. "Yes, I know," he said. "Diane just told me you might call." That one sentence removed his last possible excuse. Karen said, "Natalie is ready for discharge, and you're listed as her primary escort. I'm at a family event. She can't leave unless an approved adult collects her. I understand. Are you coming?" There was a long pause. In the background, I heard my sister's voice. She was asking someone to bring over a chair. My father lowered his voice. How immediate is this? She's ready now. Can she wait an hour or two? She has already been in recovery. We need a definite plan. Well, I can't give you an exact time. Are you able to leave now? No. Is there a medical or transportation reason you're unable to come? No. We're about to open gifts. I pressed my fingertips against the table. Karen's voice remained calm. Mister. Green, your daughter listed you as the person responsible for taking her home after anesthesia. I know what the form says. I'm not leaving my younger daughter's shower in the middle of everything when Natalie is already with medical staff. Then I need to document that you're declining to collect her. You can document whatever you need. The recording ended a few seconds later. I looked across my kitchen at the gray scarf Alyssa had left on the counter. My father hadn't misunderstood the hospital. He hadn't missed the call. He had known exactly what he'd promised and exactly what refusing meant. I played Alyssa's file last. She answered with, "Hi, I'm kind of in the middle of something." Karen went through the same explanation. Alyssa said, "Did you call my parents?" "Yes. Neither has agreed to come." That doesn't make sense. Dad said he was handling it. He told me he could not leave. In the background, someone called Alyssa's name. She said, "Give me 1 second." The sound became muffled. Then she returned. Can Natalie just stay there until we're finished? That decision would require an overnight admission. Okay, are you able to collect her? I'm the guest of honor here. I understand. I'm asking whether you can leave. We haven't opened half the gifts and we still need family photographs. So you're declining as well? I'm not declining. I'm saying those things can't wait. The discharge requires an adult escort. Then keep her there. She'll be annoyed, but she'll be fine. Karen said, I need a clear answer. Are you coming to the hospital? No. That was the end of it. I sat in my kitchen for several minutes without touching the phone. The refrigerator hummed. A truck stopped outside. Somewhere in the building, a dog barked twice. I played the calls again, not because I hadn't understood them. I wanted to be certain I wasn't adding something that wasn't there. I listened for panic, confusion, a missed question, anything that could support the scheduling story. There was nothing. Each person had been told what I needed. Each person had chosen not to come. The recordings didn't make me feel powerful. They made the room seem very quiet. My phone rang while the third file was still open. It was my mother. I closed the audio but didn't answer. She called again. Then she sent a message. Please call. Need final menu decision today. I waited until the ringing stopped before typing, You and Dad can choose the menu. 3 dots appeared immediately. We don't understand all the options. The options are explained in the email. Can you just tell us which one works best? No. She called a third time. I answered because I didn't want her showing up at my apartment. What's going on with you? She asked. I said you can choose. You've handled the food from the beginning. I'm not handling it today. The deadline is today. Then you should decide today. My mother went quiet. I could picture her at the kitchen table with printed menus spread around her. She liked to see all her choices at once, but she hated being responsible for the final one. If something went wrong, she preferred to have someone else's recommendation attached to it. This dinner matters to us, she said. I know. Your father worked for decades. I worked for decades. We're allowed to have one evening where things are taken care of. I touched the edge of my incision. Yes. Then why are you making this difficult? I'm asking you to pick between 2 meals. You know that isn't what I mean. No, I do. She let out a tired breath. We apologized. Dad apologized that I stayed overnight. You said the timing got confused. That is an apology. It isn't an honest one. What does that mean? I nearly told her I had the recordings. The words reached the back of my throat and stopped there. If I mentioned them, the conversation would become about how I obtained them. My mother would ask whether recording the calls was legal. My father would say his words sounded worse without seeing the room. Alyssa would claim she'd been pressured in front of guests. They would prepare explanations before I'd even decided what I wanted. So I said, "It means you knew I was ready to leave." Of course we knew, eventually. The nurse called. "And we've gone over this." "No, you've gone around it." My mother's voice hardened. "I'm not going to keep defending one bad afternoon." "Then don't." "What is that supposed to mean?" "It means choose the chicken or the salmon." She hung up. An hour later, the hotel system notified me that the salmon had been selected. My mother had made a decision without me. The event did not collapse. I approved the menu choice because the agreement still required an internal host to acknowledge changes. Then I added a note directing future preference questions to Diane and Craig. That note worked until the next morning. At 9:15, a florist called my office line. My mother had given her my number and said I would confirm the loading entrance. I explained where deliveries went and asked the florist to contact my mother for arrangement counts. "She told me you were coordinating," the florist said. "I'm the hotel contact. She's the event client." There was a short pause. "All right, I'll call her." At 10, a former co-worker of my father emailed me about speech timing. At 11:30, my mother forwarded a question about parking. Just after noon, Alyssa sent photographs of 3 centerpiece styles and wrote, "Which looks most expensive?" I answered none of them. Instead, I opened the event file and counted how many tasks still depended on me. The list was longer than I expected. My parents hadn't simply relied on the discount. They had built the entire dinner on the assumption that I would keep working no matter what happened between us. My personal phone rang. This time it was Alyssa. "What did you say to Mom?" she asked. "I told her to choose the menu. She's been crying all morning." "About salmon?" "You know it isn't about salmon." I waited. Alyssa continued. "She feels like you're holding the surgery over everybody." I asked a direct question. Nobody gave me a direct answer. Dad did. Dad said the hospital never reached him. He said he misunderstood who was calling. That isn't what he told me. Then maybe you misunderstood him. I looked at the 3 audio files on my screen. "No, you're always so sure. I'm sure about this." She exhaled sharply. "Can you please just get through the retirement dinner? After that, be mad if you want. So you want me to keep organizing everything until the event is over. I want you to act like part of the family." There was the bargain I had spent years accepting. Work first, belonging afterward. "What if I don't?" I asked. "Don't what?" "Organize it." "You already agreed." "I agreed to sponsor the hotel package. You agreed to help Mom and Dad. They aren't the same thing. They are to them." That was probably true. Alyssa lowered her voice. "Look, Mom said the hospital was going to keep you. Dad thought she'd arranged it. I thought Dad had. Everybody was trying to manage a lot." I let her finish. Then I asked, "Did Dad tell the nurse he couldn't leave because you were opening gifts?" She stopped. "What?" "It's a simple question. I don't know what Dad told the nurse. Did you tell the nurse family photographs couldn't wait?" Her breathing changed. "Why are you wording it like that?" "Did you?" "I told you I don't remember every word. You remember enough to know whether I'm wrong. Where is this coming from?" I didn't answer. "Natalie, did somebody at the hospital tell you something?" "The hospital documented the calls." That was all I said. She became completely quiet. I could almost hear her deciding what to ask next. Finally, she said, "You're being really strange. I need to go." "Wait. What does documented mean?" I ended the call. My hands were steady, but my pulse had quickened. I had given away more than I intended. Alyssa didn't know I had the audio, but she knew the hospital had a record. Within minutes, my mother texted, "What are you accusing us of?" My father called twice. Then a message from him appeared. "I never spoke directly to anyone at the hospital. Whatever you think you saw is wrong." I saved that message beside the nursing note, showing live contact. The lie was no longer only about what happened, it had become a choice they were making after the fact. At 3 that afternoon, the Summit House event manager called me. "I need to ask you something plainly," she said. "Are you still willing to serve as the employee host for your parents' dinner?" I looked at the signed agreement on my screen. Until that moment, I had treated the dinner like another task I could finish while refusing smaller ones. Now it was the largest task left between us, and my name was attached to every part of it. I told her I needed to understand what staying attached would require. "That depends on what you mean by attached," she said. The event manager's name was Lena. We had worked together for several years, and she knew I didn't bring personal problems into hotel files. That was probably why she had waited until the repeated phone calls before asking. "I don't want vendors or relatives being told I'm the organizer," I said. "I can perform the internal steps required by the agreement. I'm not making their decisions anymore." "That division works with normal clients," she said. "I'm not sure it works here." "Why?" "Because your parents are telling everyone you'll take care of whatever they don't answer." I looked at the activity log again. Who else called? Your mother called banquet operations. Your father called accounting. Your sister called the front desk and asked to be transferred to whoever handles employee family events. What did she want? To know whether the hotel could replace the internal host. I sat back. "What did you tell her?" "I didn't speak to her. Front desk sent the call to sales, and sales sent it to me." She hung up before I picked up. Lena paused. "Are they trying to remove you, or are you trying to remove yourself?" "I haven't decided." "Then decide based on the agreement, not on whatever they're saying today." That was the kind of advice Lena gave, short and practical. I asked, "Can you send me the current public rate comparison? You can pull it from the contract system. I want the one accounting would use if the employee host status changed." She understood why I was asking. "I'll have it sent to your work email. Thank you." "And Natalie?" "Yes?" "If you stay as the employee host, your family still has to be the client. You cannot be both sides of the event." "I know. I'm not sure they do." After the call, I opened the signed agreement. I had administered employee host events for years. I already knew the provision. An employee could withdraw sponsorship before the deadline. The reservation wouldn't automatically disappear, but the event would convert to the public rate. The clients would become responsible for the difference and for all remaining coordination. I had explained the general rule to my parents before signing. What I hadn't done was read their agreement again after learning they expected the hospital to keep me because leaving a shower was inconvenient. The withdrawal section was near the end. It stated that written notice had to be submitted at least 72 hours before the event. If I missed that deadline, my employee sponsorship would remain attached. The dinner was the following Saturday. I had time, but not much. Accounting sent the comparison 20 minutes later. The converted balance was $9,600. I read the amount and closed the file. My parents had enough money to pay it. They had set aside funds for a used camper after retirement, and I knew the approximate amount because my father had asked me to compare financing options. Paying the public rate would take a large part of that fund. That mattered to me. I didn't want to take their camper away. I didn't want the hotel to gain money because my family had failed me. I wanted them to admit what they had done and stop expecting me to repair the consequences. At that point, I still believed those things could be separated. I returned to work in person the next morning for a half shift. The Summit House lobby smelled like coffee and the cedar oil housekeeping used on the front desk. Sunlight came through the tall windows and landed across the stone floor. I'd worked there long enough that walking through those doors settled something in me. At home, my family could turn a clear question into a personal attack. At the hotel, a deadline remained a deadline. I took the elevator to the sales office, put my lunch in the refrigerator, and printed the remaining action list for my parents' dinner. It covered 2 pages: final guest count, seating chart, floral quantity, delivery schedule, speech order, music selections, parking instructions, vendor contacts, payment authorization, dietary confirmations. I highlighted every item that required a client decision. Then I removed my personal phone number from the vendor contact sheet and replaced it with my office line for hotel questions only. Diane and Craig remained the client contacts. At 11, I walked to the Pikes Peak ballroom with the printed list. The room was empty except for stacked chairs and rolled tables. Through the west windows, the mountain was partly covered by clouds. I stood where my parents' head table would be and checked the floor plan. The dinner could still happen without a problem. That was important. With the existing reservation, there was enough space. The menu had been chosen. The major vendors were booked. No one needed me to save the event. They needed me to continue making it effortless. I returned to my office and emailed the task list to my parents. I wrote, "These decisions belong to the clients. Please return the completed list by Tuesday. Hotel-specific questions can come to my office email." My mother called within 4 minutes. I let it go to voicemail. My father called next. Then Alyssa sent a message. "Why did you send Mom homework?" I replied, "It's their event checklist. She's never planned a hotel dinner. She chose the hotel. That was because you work there." I didn't answer. A few minutes later, Lena appeared at my office door. "Your mother is downstairs." I looked toward the clock. Did she ask for me? She asked for the manager. Of course she did. Lena leaned against the door frame. "Do you want me there?" "No, but thank you." My parents were waiting near the lobby fireplace. My mother held the printed checklist. My father had brought the entire event binder, a thick blue folder I'd assembled for them. They had driven downtown together in the middle of a work day because I'd asked them to complete 2 pages. Mom stood when she saw me. "We need to talk somewhere private." I led them to a small consultation room off the sales hall. My father placed the binder on the table. "What is all this?" he asked. "The remaining work for your dinner. We know that." "Why did you send it to us?" "Because you need to complete it. You've been completing it. I'm not anymore." My mother glanced through the glass wall toward the hallway. "Can we please not do this at your workplace? You came to my workplace. We came because you wouldn't answer. I was working." "You're working on our event." "No. I'm working at the hotel where your event is being held." My father opened the binder. "We don't know which florist door to use. The loading entrance is listed on the delivery page. And if they arrive early, they wait until the scheduled time. What if the room isn't ready? Banquet operations handles the room." He looked at my mother. She said, "This is ridiculous." "What part?" "The part where you pretend you don't understand what we need. I understand exactly what you need." My mother lowered her voice. "We are sorry you had to stay overnight." I watched her face. "Are you sorry nobody came? It's the same thing." "No." My father tapped the binder. "We're not going through this again. You came here. Because you're involving the hotel. It's a hotel event. You know what I mean." He pushed the checklist toward me. "We want to know whether this dinner is secure. The reservation is secure. And the employee rate?" I looked at both of them. My mother's expression became cautious. "You said you hadn't done anything," she said. "I haven't." "Then why won't you answer?" "Because you're asking whether I'll keep attaching my name to your event while you deny speaking to the hospital." My father's jaw tightened. I did not speak directly to anyone. I had given him an easy chance to stop lying. He didn't take it. I asked, "Then how did you know the caller thought it was an emergency?" "Your mother told me." My mother looked at him. It lasted less than a second, but I saw it. "What?" he asked her. "Nothing." I turned to my mother. "Did you tell Dad what the nurse said before the hospital called him?" "I don't remember the exact order." "Did Dad answer a call from the hospital?" "He answered a lot of calls that day." "Did he answer that one?" My mother gathered the checklist pages together. "You're trying to trap us with details. I'm asking whether a phone call happened. This is unhealthy," she said. "You had surgery. You were frightened, and now you're fixating. I wasn't frightened when Dad promised to pick me up." My father stood. "I'm not going to sit here and be accused of lying." I stayed seated. "Then don't lie." He looked toward the glass wall. Lena was speaking with someone down the hallway. She wasn't watching us, but my father lowered his voice anyway. "You need to be careful about bringing family matters into your job." The warning was quiet. It was also the first time either of them had tried to make my employment part of the pressure. "My job has a signed agreement," I said. "That's what I'm following." My mother stood beside him. "We trusted you with this dinner. You trusted me to do the work. We trusted you not to embarrass us. No one is embarrassed right now. People are asking why you're acting strangely." "Which people?" "Family. Who told them?" She didn't answer. Alyssa had probably started making calls after I mentioned the hospital documentation. My mother had probably continued. They were building a version before they knew what evidence existed. My father picked up the event binder. "You'll get the checklist by Tuesday." "Good." "And then this stops." "What stops?" "This performance." I didn't respond. They left together. Through the glass wall, I watched my mother touch my father's arm and say something close to his ear. Neither looked back. Lena waited until the lobby doors closed before entering the consultation room. "Do they know about the withdrawal provision?" she asked. "They know employee sponsorship is conditional. That isn't what I asked." "No. I don't think they understand the exact consequence." She sat across from me. "I heard enough to know they're worried about it. I haven't decided to withdraw." "I know. Can I remain the sponsor and require them to coordinate directly?" "You can require it. Whether they comply is another question. If they don't, then the event falls back on you because your employee name is attached. That's the practical answer." I looked at the empty chair where my father had been sitting. Lena continued. "If you withdraw, accounting sends an automatic conversion notice to the clients. It includes the balance and the payment deadline. There is no quiet version." That was the causally planted complication I hadn't allowed myself to consider. The moment I used the agreement, my parents would know. They might not know why I had stopped believing them, but they would know I had acted. I returned to my office and finished the half shift. Before leaving, I changed my contract system password. My parents didn't have it, but I had signed into the hotel portal on their computer months earlier while helping with the deposit. I couldn't remember whether I had saved the login. The password change worked. Every other session was logged out. My phone rang as I stepped into the elevator. It was my mother. This time I answered. "Your father says you threatened the discount," she said. "I didn't threaten anything, then promise you won't remove it." The elevator doors opened into the lobby. "I'm not making that promise." She went quiet. In the background, I heard my father ask what I had said. Then my mother replied, "You won't do it. You're angry, but you won't take something this important from us." She said it with complete confidence, not because she trusted my judgment, because she believed I still needed my place in the family more than they needed to treat me with respect. I didn't answer. The elevator doors closed behind me, and I walked across the lobby toward the employee entrance. My mother called again before I reached my car. I silenced the phone. By Tuesday morning, the event checklist was due. At 9, my father emailed it back with 5 blank sections. The guest count was marked approximately 90. The hotel needed an exact number. The floral quantity said, "Ask Natalie." The speech order said, "Natalie will coordinate." The payment authorization wasn't signed. I replied to both parents. "Please complete every highlighted section. An approximate guest count cannot be used for the final banquet order." My father wrote back, "Call me." I didn't. At 10:30, Lena asked me to come to her office. She had the event file open on one monitor and a complaint email on the other. My father had sent it to the hotel's general customer address. He said his event was being placed at risk because the assigned employee had become unresponsive over a private family disagreement. He never identified me as his daughter in the first paragraph. He called me the assigned employee. In the second paragraph, he described himself as a loyal client who had already paid a substantial deposit. Near the end, he wrote that I might be using hotel procedures to pressure him into admitting fault in an unrelated disagreement. I read the email twice. "He sent this last night?" I asked. At 11:40. He texted me at 11:30 asking what number to use for guest services. Lena folded her hands on the desk. "I need to document our conversation. I understand. Have you failed to perform any required employee host duty?" "No." Have you changed the reservation rate, room, menu, or services without client approval? No. Have you threatened to do that? No. She nodded. That matches the file. I looked toward the complaint email. Does it stay in my employee record? It stays with the event record. If this goes any further, it may need to be reviewed as a workplace complaint. There was the professional cost. My parents had brought the disagreement into the hotel, then accused me of bringing it there. Lena continued, I'm separating you from day-to-day service contact for this event. I'll handle hotel operations. You remain the employee sponsor unless you withdraw under the agreement. Will that make it look like the complaint was valid? It will look like I removed a conflict before it affected the event. I knew that was the correct decision. I would have made the same one for another employee. It still hurt. I'd worked at Summit House since 2014. My record was clean. I had managed weddings where the couple stopped speaking before dessert. I had handled retirement dinners, memorial lunches, charity auctions, and one conference where the main speaker missed his flight and blamed our shuttle. I'd never let a personal issue enter a client file. Now my father's complaint sat on Lena's screen with my name attached. I'm sorry, she said. You don't need to be. I'm not apologizing for the decision. I know. I'm sorry they did this at your job. I looked down at the edge of her desk. Thank you. Lena turned the monitor slightly away. You have until the contractual deadline to decide about sponsorship. I'm not going to tell you what to do. When exactly does the deadline fall? Wednesday at 6 in the evening. The dinner was Saturday at 6. If I withdrew 1 minute after Wednesday evening, the agreement would remain attached to me. If I stay attached, I said, you'll handle service contact, but I'm still responsible for employee-host compliance. Yes. And if they leave something unfinished, we'll contact the clients first. If they don't respond, we contact you. That was what my parents were counting on. They could leave 5 sections blank. They could ignore a payment authorization. They could tell the florist to ask Natalie. As long as my name remained on the agreement, the hotel would eventually bring every loose end back to me. I left Lena's office with a copy of the complaint. At my desk, my phone showed messages from 2 relatives invited to the dinner. One said, "Your mom is very upset. Please don't ruin this milestone." The other said, "Whatever happened last week can be discussed after the celebration." Neither asked what had happened. I called my mother. She answered immediately. "Are you ready to talk? Why is Dad filing a complaint against me at work? He isn't filing a complaint against you. I'm looking at it. He was trying to get someone to help with the event. He called me unresponsive." "You were unresponsive." I sent the checklist. "You sent us work you had already agreed to do. I agreed to sponsor the package. Stop hiding behind that word. It's the word on the agreement." My mother's voice became tight. "Your father is humiliated. He wrote to my employer. Because you wouldn't call him. I was at work. You keep saying that as if we're strangers asking for special treatment. You are clients asking for hotel work. We're your parents. Then why did Dad describe me as an assigned employee?" She didn't answer. I heard my father speaking in the background. Mom covered the phone, but not fully. "She says she has the email," he replied. "Of course she does." My mother returned. "We want you to come to the house tonight." "Why?" "Because this can't continue over the phone." I almost refused. Then I looked at the complaint again. "All right," I said. But I'm not completing the checklist for you. Just come at 6. When I arrived, Alyssa's car was already in the driveway. My parents' front door was unlocked, but I still used the spare key from my ring. I had driven over so many times to solve things that my hand did it automatically. The binder was open on the dining table. 3 pens lay beside it. My mother had made coffee. My father sat at the head of the table. Alyssa was on the side nearest the window, wearing the gray scarf she'd brought to my apartment. I noticed that before I sat down. Mom pushed a cup toward me. "I made it weak because of your throat. Thank you." For a moment, the scene looked normal. The same table, the same coffee mugs, the same binder waiting for me. Then my father said, "You embarrassed me in front of your manager." I placed the complaint email on the table. "You sent this. I had to get your attention. You had my attention. You refused to speak to me. I emailed the information you needed. You know I don't like handling details over email. That doesn't make it my job. Alyssa leaned forward. Can we stop talking like co-workers? Dad started that in his complaint. He was frustrated. So was I when nobody came to the hospital. My mother closed her eyes briefly. We are back here again. We never left. Dad pushed the binder toward me. We filled out what we could. Then send it to Lena. We want you to review it first. No. His hand remained on the binder. Natalie. No. The word came out evenly. I didn't raise my voice. He pulled the binder back. Alyssa said, "You're enjoying this." What? Watching them struggle with something you could fix in an hour. My mother didn't correct her. I looked at Alyssa. Do you think I enjoyed staying overnight after surgery? That isn't what I said. It's what this is about. You're punishing Mom and Dad over one missed afternoon. There it was, reduced to a piece of time. Not 3 promises, not 3 recorded refusals, not my father's lie afterward. One missed afternoon. Alyssa continued, They have worked their whole lives for this dinner. People are coming from different places. Mom has talked about it for months, and now you're using the hotel to make everybody feel guilty. I haven't changed the reservation. You keep hinting that you could. I told Mom I wouldn't promise not to. That's a threat. It's an answer. My father tapped one finger against the table. If you remove that discount, we'll tell the hotel exactly why. You already did. We'll make it formal. I looked at the 3 of them. My mother appeared worried. My father looked angry. Alyssa looked certain I would give in if they stayed united long enough. I had seen that arrangement my entire life. Alyssa created the pressure. My father gave it authority. My mother made surrender sound like kindness. Then I completed the task, apologized for the tension, and waited for the family to feel normal again. That was the true scale of the conflict. They hadn't simply chosen a shower over my discharge. They believed every promise to me could be broken because my role required me to stay useful afterward. An apology would not change that. Even the truth would not change it if I continued doing the same work. If you've ever reached that point with your own family, leave the word enough in the comments. My mother touched the binder. Natalie, please. We can still have a nice dinner. I hope you do. Then help us finish this. No. Her fingers tightened around the edge. What do you want? Until that moment, I would have answered honestly. I wanted them to admit the nurse had reached all 3 of them. I wanted my father to stop lying. I wanted my mother to say she had chosen the shower because it mattered more to her. I wanted Alyssa to understand why gift photographs weren't more important than the promise she made me. But I could hear the problem in all those answers. I still wanted them to give me something. I want you to handle your own event, I said. My father laughed once. That's it? Yes. You dragged this into your workplace because you want us to fill out a form? No. You dragged it into my workplace because you didn't want to fill one out. His face reddened. My mother moved quickly. Let's all calm down. I'm calm. Then act like it. I stood. Alyssa said, So you're leaving? Yes, of course. I picked up the complaint email. My mother asked, What are you going to do about the agreement? I haven't decided. You need to tell us. I need to tell the hotel by Wednesday at 6. My father's expression shifted. He hadn't known there was an exact deadline. Tell the hotel what? Alyssa asked. I looked at her. Whether I'm still sponsoring the dinner? Mom stood too. We can't pay the regular price. You can hold the dinner at the agreed reservation. The rate depends on the employee-host terms. That is not what you told us. It's in the agreement I emailed you. You said the price was protected. I said it stayed protected while I remained the employee-host and payment deadlines were met. My father said, You're twisting your own words. No, you wouldn't have signed it if you planned to use it against us. When I signed it, you hadn't left me at the hospital. The room went silent. Alyssa looked at my bandage, then away. My mother said, You were not left at the hospital. I reached into my purse and touched my phone. The recordings were there. For a second, I wanted to play them. I wanted to watch the lie end at that table. Then I looked at the binder, the blank sections, and the 3 people waiting for me to become useful again. Playing the calls would only start another argument. They would defend their words. They would focus on tone, timing, and context. My mother would cry. My father would demand to speak to someone at the hospital. Alyssa would say stress had made her sound worse than she meant. And when the argument ended, the binder would still be waiting. I took my hand out of my purse. I'm leaving now. My father said, "If you walk out, don't expect us to chase you." I don't. That answer surprised both of us. I walked to the front door and removed the spare house key from the lock. The strip of green tape was peeling at one corner. I put it back on my ring. I wasn't ready to return it. I wasn't ready to decide what that key meant, but I knew what the dinner meant now. My goal was no longer to make them admit they had failed me. My goal was to stop making their plans safe from the way they treated me. I drove home without calling anyone. At my apartment, I placed the event complaint on the kitchen table beside my discharge records. The 2 sets of documents had nothing to do with each other officially. One belonged to the hospital, one belonged to the hotel. Together, they showed the same pattern. My family expected institutions to absorb whatever they didn't want to handle. I opened my laptop and made a list of every family task still sitting in my calendar. My father's retirement benefit follow-up was scheduled for Friday. I deleted it. My mother had a medical appointment the next week with a reminder for me to drive her. I removed that too. There was a note to help Alyssa organize thank you cards. Gone. I didn't cancel their appointments or interfere with anything they had arranged. I only removed my own unpaid assignments. Then I wrote 3 separate messages. To my father, I wrote, "I will not handle your retirement paperwork. Please contact the retirement office directly." To my mother, I wrote, "I will not manage your appointments or transportation. Please make other arrangements." To Alyssa, I wrote, "I will not be coordinating shower follow-up or future family logistics." I waited before sending them. The old version of me would have softened each message. I would have added, for now, or until I'm feeling better. I would have given them a date when they could begin using me again. I sent the messages as written. My father responded first. "This is childish." My mother wrote, "I don't recognize you." Alyssa didn't reply. I put the phone in a drawer and made myself dinner. The next morning was Wednesday. I arrived at Summit House just after 8. Lena was already in her office. I asked if she had 20 minutes. She closed the event file she was reviewing and said, "I assume you decided. I have questions first. Go ahead. If I withdraw, does the hotel cancel the dinner? No. Do my parents lose the deposit? No. The deposit remains applied to the reservation. Does any service change automatically? No. Same ballroom, menu, and scheduled time. The price converts to the public rate, and they become responsible for all coordination. Yes. What happens if they refuse the converted balance? They can cancel under the client cancellation terms, or they can keep the event and pay. They cannot enter the ballroom under the employee rate without an employee sponsor." I nodded. "Can they claim I altered their contract without consent?" "No. They signed an agreement that included the employee host condition. What if they complain about me? They already have." I looked at her. Lena's expression stayed neutral. "The complaint doesn't change the agreement," she said. "Your right to withdraw is part of the contract they signed. Would withdrawing affect my position here? Not by itself. The policy exists because employees are not required to sponsor family events indefinitely. I had known that. I'd explained the same rule to other employees. It sounded different when I needed it. What would it take to restore the sponsorship later? I asked. A new written employee request, management approval, updated signatures. So it wouldn't happen because a client called and said I'd changed my mind. No. Could anyone submit it using my old login? You changed your password. Yes. Then no. Lena turned her monitor toward me. The withdrawal form was available inside the contract system. It required my employee credentials and a typed explanation. The explanation didn't need personal details. "Do you want me to stay?" she asked. "No, I need to read everything." She stood. "I'll be in the ballroom until 10. After she left, I went through the event agreement from the first page to the last. The signed copy showed my parents' initials beside the employee host section. My father had initialed the withdrawal paragraph. My mother had initialed the public rate conversion paragraph. They could say they hadn't read it. They couldn't say it wasn't there. I opened the withdrawal form. For the reason I wrote, employee is no longer willing to sponsor or coordinate this private family event. Reservation and services remain available to clients under public rate terms. I didn't submit it. Not yet. I saved the draft and went downstairs to the ballroom level. Staff members were setting tables for a conference lunch. I helped move 2 place-setting carts out of the corridor, then checked the delivery schedule for my regular clients. My parents' florist had updated her contact information. Diane was now listed as the person confirming quantities. The speech order was still blank. The guest count still said approximately 90. At 11, my mother called my office line. I answered because it was now a client contact. "This is Natalie in event sales." She disliked the greeting. "Are you really going to speak to me like that?" "You called my office. I need to know whether you're coming to my appointment next week. I sent you a message last night. I saw it." "Then you know." "You already said you would drive me." "I said that before surgery. So now every promise you made is canceled?" "No. I'm no longer managing routine tasks for the family. A ride is not management. It becomes management when I have to schedule it, remind you, collect your paperwork, and wait through the appointment. I never asked you to wait. You always ask me to wait. What am I supposed to do? Call Dad, call Alyssa, take a car. Alyssa has enough going on." I looked at the ballroom calendar on my wall. There it was again. Alyssa's time had wait. Mine was available. "I'm not taking you." My mother lowered her voice. "You're going to regret treating us this way. Then I'll deal with that." She hung up. 5 minutes later, Alyssa called my personal phone. I answered. "Mom is crying," she said. "She needs a ride next week. She said you canceled on her. I told her to make another arrangement. Why can't you take her? Why can't you? I have appointments. So does Mom. You know what I mean?" "Yes." Alyssa became quiet. Then she said, "You're doing this because you want us to beg." "No." "What do you want then?" "I want you to stop planning around me. That makes no sense. Mom called you before calling a car because she assumes your time is protected and mine belongs to her. That's not fair. Then drive her. I'll ask Dad." "Good." I ended the call before she could return to the dinner. At noon, my father emailed the completed guest count. 92. He had called every uncertain guest himself. A second email arrived from my mother with the floral quantity. 12 arrangements for guest tables, 1 for the welcome table, and 1 for the head table. The answers were clear. They had done in one morning what they'd insisted they couldn't do without me. I forwarded both emails to Lena. She replied, "Received. I'll update the banquet order." That was the first visible result of the new strategy. They weren't helpless. They had been comfortable. At 1:30, my mother sent a photograph from inside my father's truck. He was driving her to the appointment location so they could check parking before the following week. She added, "Since you won't help." I didn't answer. They had found transportation. At 3, Lena stopped beside my desk. "The event file is nearly complete," she said. "Your sister submitted the speech order." "Alyssa did. She called your parents' former co-workers and confirmed who wanted to speak." "What order did she choose?" "Co-workers first, family last." "That works." Lena studied my face. "Do you want to keep the sponsorship now that they're coordinating?" It was a fair question. For a moment, I considered it. The practical problems seemed to be improving. My parents were answering emails. Alyssa was handling phone calls. The event could continue without constant contact with me. But if I kept the sponsorship, they would learn a different lesson. They would learn that they only had to perform independence until I calmed down. Then the discount, the protection, and my labor would return. "No," I said. "Their ability to handle the event is the reason I can step away." Lena nodded once. "What time do you want the withdrawal processed?" "Before 6. I'll leave it to you." At 4:42, I reopened the form. The system displayed a warning. Submitting this withdrawal will remove employee host pricing. Clients will receive an automatic conversion notice and become responsible for the public rate balance of $9,600. Ballroom access requires acceptance of the converted balance. Below that were two buttons: cancel, submit. I thought about the camper my parents wanted. I pictured my father showing me listings at their kitchen table. I remembered my mother talking about taking it through New Mexico once they were both retired. Then I remembered my father telling the nurse, "You can document whatever you need." I selected submit. The system requested my password. I entered it. A final confirmation appeared with the effective time and my employee identification. The sponsorship ended. Within seconds, the label beside the reservation changed from employee host to public client. My name disappeared from the coordination field. Lena's name appeared as the event contact. The automatic conversion notice went to my parents at 4:44. My mother called at 4:45. My father called at 4:46. Alyssa called at 4:47. I didn't answer any of them. At 4:50, an email arrived from my father. The subject line said, "Reverse this immediately." The message contained one sentence: "You know we cannot absorb an extra $9,600 because you're angry." I replied, "The dinner remains reserved. Please direct event questions to Lena." His response came back almost at once. "This is not an event question. This is a family demand." I left it unanswered. At 5:10, Lena forwarded me a confirmation. My mother had accepted the updated coordination terms, but had not accepted the converted balance. The hotel gave them until ballroom access on Saturday to provide payment authorization. If they chose to cancel before then, the cancellation terms would apply. They had time to decide. So did I. At 5:30, my father submitted the final payment authorization form with the signature line left blank. Lena returned it to him. At 5:40, Alyssa completed the parking instructions. At 5:50, my mother approved the final seating chart. They were running the dinner themselves. Then, at 6:03, my mother sent a message to the family group chat. "Please ignore the upsetting hotel notice. Natalie is overwhelmed after surgery. She will restore the family rate once she has had time to settle down." The message named my strategy and erased my decision in the same sentence. Alyssa added a heart beneath it. My father wrote, "The dinner will proceed as planned." I took screenshots. They had stopped expecting me to complete every task. Now they were expecting me to surrender the one boundary that mattered. At 6:12, the first private message arrived from a relative. "Your mother says the hotel made a mistake. Can you fix it?" I replied, "The hotel did not make a mistake." She asked what had happened. Before I could decide how much to say, another message appeared from someone else. "Please don't make your parents spend their retirement savings over a disagreement." By 7, 6 people had contacted me. The wording was similar in every message. My parents had told them the hotel conversion was an error caused by my emotional state after surgery. They said I had overreacted, removed the discount without warning, and would probably restore it by morning. One relative asked whether the anesthesia was still affecting my judgment. I stopped answering. My father called at 8. I let it go to voicemail. "Natalie, this has gone far enough. Your mother is sick over what you've done. You will log into that system tomorrow morning and correct it. If you don't, we'll have no choice but to explain the situation to every guest and to your employer. Call me tonight." He said correct it as if I had clicked the wrong button. My mother left a voicemail 10 minutes later. Her voice was softer. "We love you. We know you're hurt. But love doesn't look like taking nearly $10,000 from your parents. Please sleep on this." I saved both voicemails. Then Alyssa called. I answered because I wanted to hear what version she had received. "Are you alone?" she asked. "Yes." "Good. Mom doesn't know I'm calling." That was probably untrue. My mother usually knew when Alyssa called me during a family conflict. "What do you want? I want to give you a chance to fix this before Dad makes it worse." "What is he doing?" "He's writing another complaint. He already sent one. This one is formal. He says you didn't explain the financial risk when they signed. They initialed the conversion section. You're the hotel expert. They trusted you. I read it to them at the kitchen table. I was there. Then you know. I remember you saying the rate depended on your employee status. I don't remember you saying you could remove it whenever you got angry. I couldn't remove it whenever I got angry. I withdrew sponsorship before the contractual deadline. That sounds exactly like something you'd say at work. It is something I'd say at work. Alyssa went quiet. Then she said, Dad says they'll have to use the camper money. That's their decision. You helped them plan that trip. I helped Dad compare financing. He's been talking about retirement for years. I know. And you're okay taking that from him? I'm not taking it. You know what I mean? No, I know what you want me to mean. She exhaled into the phone. You want them to pay so they suffer. I want my employee name off the agreement. You could leave your name there without doing any work. No. The hotel would still come to me if they failed to answer. They're answering now, because I withdrew. So it worked. They learned whatever lesson you wanted. Put the rate back. That was the strongest argument anyone had made. The practical behavior had changed. My mother had approved the seating chart. My father had found the exact guest count. Alyssa had called the speakers. If my only goal had been making them perform the tasks, I could have restored the sponsorship. But the family chat told me what would happen next. They would call my withdrawal a temporary episode. They would say I had calmed down. They would take back the discount while keeping the story that I had been irrational. My boundary would become another family mess that Natalie eventually fixed. I'm not restoring it, I said. Alyssa's voice changed. Then don't come Saturday. I was invited. That was before you tried to ruin it. Are Mom and Dad uninviting me? I am. It isn't your dinner. I'm trying to protect them. From what? From having to look at you while they pay for what you did. I let that sit. Then I said, ask them to tell me themselves. She hung up. I didn't sleep much that night. The cost had become concrete. $9,600 was not a symbolic amount. It was camper money, travel money, and months of planning. If my parents paid it, they would remember the loss every time they saw me. If they canceled, the guests would remember that too. There was no outcome where my decision stayed private. At 8 the next morning, Lena asked me to come to the small consultation room. She had printed my father's formal complaint. This version was longer. It said I had used private knowledge of my parents' finances to create pressure. It said I had failed to explain the withdrawal provision clearly. It said I was interfering with a major family celebration while recovering from anesthesia and might not be acting with normal judgment. I touched the bandage at my neck. He's suggesting I'm medically impaired. Yes. Does he have any basis for that? No. What happens now? The hotel responds to the contract facts. They initialed the relevant terms. You submitted the withdrawal on time. You did not access anything outside your role. That isn't what I asked. Lena waited. I asked, what happens to me? You provide a written statement. The complaint and response remain in the event record. Because they've requested privacy from you, you'll lose access to their client file. I work in the contract system. You'll see the reservation on the property calendar. You won't see their payments, notes, or communications. That was reasonable after my sponsorship ended. It was also a loss. Until then, I had known every step they took. Now I wouldn't know whether they planned to cancel, pay, or arrive expecting the hotel to bend. Will I be disciplined? I asked. Not based on what I've reviewed. Will other managers see the complaint? Only those involved in the response. I nodded. Lena slid a blank statement form toward me. Keep it factual. I wrote the date I had signed the agreement. I wrote that both clients had received a copy. I wrote that I had withdrawn within the employee host deadline and had not changed the reservation or its services. I didn't mention the surgery. I didn't mention the hospital calls. Those facts explained my decision, but they weren't needed to prove I had followed hotel policy. When I finished, Lena read the statement. This is enough, she said. Can they force the hotel to restore the rate? No. Can management restore it without me? No. It requires an active employee sponsor. Can another employee sponsor them? Not under this agreement. A new sponsor would need a qualifying relationship and management approval. My parents didn't have another employee relative at Summit House. The only way back to the discounted rate was through me. Lena collected the papers. "One more thing," she said. "Your father asked whether you planned to attend. What did you say?" "That attendance is a family matter. The hotel will treat you as a guest unless the clients remove you from the list." "Have they?" "I can't tell you that now that access is restricted." That answer landed harder than I expected. I had worked in that building for years. I knew every entrance to the Pikes Peak ballroom. I knew the staff setting the tables. Yet on Saturday, I might walk up to the check-in table and learn my parents had removed my name. I returned to my office. At 10, my mother texted, "We have not canceled the dinner." A minute later, she sent another message. "We will not remove you from the guest list. We hope you choose to behave like our daughter." I read the sentence several times. It wasn't an invitation in the normal sense. It was a condition. I replied, "I will attend as an invited daughter. I will not work the event." She wrote, "We'll discuss the rate before then." "No." Her response came immediately. "Then why come?" "Because you invited me. You cannot sit there while your father and I are publicly humiliated. The balance is between you and the hotel. You caused it. I withdrew my sponsorship. Same thing." I put the phone down. The florist called my office later that morning. She had an unrelated hotel question about delivery clearance, so I answered it. Before hanging up, she said, "Your mother seems very stressed." "I'm sure she is. She told me the hotel might correct the invoice. I'm not the event contact anymore." "I know. Lena handled everything." That was the first confirmation that my parents were telling vendors the rate would return. They weren't preparing to accept the conversion. They were preparing to outlast me. At lunch, Alyssa sent a photograph of the completed place card spread across my parents' dining table. "They did all this without you," she wrote. I replied, "Good." She called immediately. "That's all you have to say? What should I say?" "You should realize they've proved they don't need your help." I wanted them to handle it, then put the discount back. No. So this was never about the work. It was about the assumption that I would always fix the result. She made a sharp sound. "You're changing your reason every day." No. "You keep offering smaller versions because you think I'll accept one. Mom is telling people you're still recovering." I know. She's trying to protect you. She's protecting the dinner. Same thing in your mind, right? No, that's your mind. Alyssa's voice dropped. "If you show up Saturday and make a scene, I will ask security to remove you. I'm not planning a scene. Then leave the hospital stuff at home." My eyes moved to the phone beside me. The recordings were stored there, downloaded from the secure link. My family still didn't know I had them. "What hospital stuff?" I asked. "The paperwork you keep talking about. I haven't shown anyone paperwork." "Good. Keep it that way." She ended the call. That afternoon, I received an email from my father addressed to several relatives and copied to me. He wrote that the dinner remained scheduled. He said there had been an unexpected administrative issue with the hotel rate, but the family was confident it would be resolved. He asked guests not to contact the hotel. At the bottom, he added, "Natalie is recovering and will be with us as a daughter, not as a hotel representative." It sounded generous. It also prepared everyone to treat anything I said as the behavior of an unwell daughter. My father had removed my professional credibility from the room before I entered it. I forwarded the email to my personal account and printed a copy. Then I opened the recordings and listened again. They were still clear. My mother had understood. My father had answered. Alyssa had refused. I could restore the sponsorship and keep my reputation inside the family. My parents would keep their camper fund. The dinner would open without a payment dispute. Everyone would say the problem had passed. All it required was my signature. I closed the contract system without submitting one. Then I confirmed my attendance for Saturday as a guest. The confirmation email arrived a few minutes later. It listed me as a guest under my full name. No employee duties, no access instructions, No request to arrive early. I saved it. On Friday morning, I asked Lena for a final policy check. We met in her office with the signed agreement open between us. "I'm not asking what my parents plan to do," I said. "I know you can't tell me that. All right. I need to know whether my withdrawal can be reversed without my approval." "No." "Has management reviewed the complaint?" "Yes." "And?" "The withdrawal stands." The complaint didn't identify a contract violation. I let out a breath. Lena continued, "Your parents have the same choices listed in the conversion notice. They can accept the public balance and proceed. They can cancel under the existing terms, or they can decline to accept the balance, in which case the ballroom won't open to their event. Even if all the guests are standing outside? Yes. Even if they say I promised to restore the rate? Yes. Who handles that conversation? I do." She didn't sound pleased about it. She sounded prepared. I asked, "Will you call me if they refuse?" "No. You aren't the employee host anymore." That answer was important. The hotel wasn't going to drag me back in because my parents created a scene. Lena wouldn't ask me to negotiate, explain, or sign anything. The consequence would remain with the clients. "Good," I said. Lena closed the agreement. "I want to be clear about something. The hotel is enforcing the contract. We are not taking a side in your family dispute. I understand. If they pay, the dinner proceeds normally. That's what I want. If they cancel, we'll follow the cancellation terms. I understand that too." She studied me for a moment. "Are you planning to tell the guests what happened? Only if my parents accuse me publicly. Do you expect that?" "Yes." Lena nodded. "Then keep hotel staff out of the family part." "I will." That was all I needed from her. No protection, no special treatment, just confirmation that the rule still existed under pressure. Back at my desk, I opened the hospital release message. The secure link had expired, but the files were already stored on my phone. I also had the cover sheet identifying each one by date, time, contact number, and archive reference. I called the records office using the number on the sheet. A staff member verified my patient number and asked what I needed. I want to confirm the audio files I received are the complete calls from the discharge archive. She placed me on hold. When she returned, she said, "The release includes the 3 complete outbound calls associated with the nurse's discharge note. Were any parts removed? No. Is there a way to verify that if someone questions the files? The cover sheet contains the archive references. The nursing note contains the call times. Those should correspond. They did. I had checked them already. Thank you." I ended the call. That removed the last uncertainty about the recordings. They weren't clips someone had selected for me. They were the full calls. I copied the files into a separate folder on my phone and renamed them in call order: Diane, Craig, Alyssa. Then I downloaded the nursing note and cover sheet for offline access. The Pikes Peak Ballroom had strong wireless service, but I wasn't going to depend on it. I tested the volume in my car during lunch. My mother's voice filled the closed space. "Then do that." I stopped the file immediately. A couple walked past carrying shopping bags. Neither looked toward me. The recording didn't need extra volume. It didn't need explanation. Anyone close enough would hear. For a few seconds, I considered sending all 3 files to the relatives my father had emailed. I could have answered his message with the recordings attached. Everyone would have known before the dinner. My parents would have lost control of the story. Alyssa wouldn't have been able to warn me to leave the hospital papers at home. It would also have turned a private medical discharge into family entertainment. People would forward the calls. They would discuss them in separate chats. Someone would send them to a person who hadn't been invited. My parents' worst minutes would become files they couldn't take back. I wanted the denial to stop. I didn't want to make humiliation permanent for its own sake, so I didn't send anything. The recording stayed on my phone. At 2, my mother called. "I want to talk before tomorrow," she said. "I'm listening. Not like this. Come to the house." "No. You won't even sit down with us? We've already done that. This is your last chance to fix the rate privately. The withdrawal is final unless I submit a new request. Then submit one." "No." She breathed slowly through her nose. "Your father is prepared to cancel. That's his choice. You keep saying that because you want no responsibility. I'm responsible for withdrawing my sponsorship. I'm not responsible for what he chooses next. We will lose the deposit. The cancellation terms were in the agreement." "Oh, stop with the agreement." I said nothing. My mother continued. "People have bought clothes. Some arranged travel. Your father's former supervisor is coming. Are you comfortable disappointing all of them? I'm not canceling the dinner. You know he won't pay that balance. Then he can tell the guests why he canceled." "And what will you tell them?" "The truth." She became quiet. "What truth?" "That I withdrew my employee sponsorship because we missed one afternoon, because you expect me to keep protecting your plans after you break promises to me. You were cared for." "By the hospital." "Yes." The word came out before she could soften it. She tried immediately. "That isn't what I mean." "It's exactly what you meant when the nurse called." Another silence. Then she asked, "Did you speak to that nurse again?" "I requested my patient records." My mother's breathing changed. "What did they give you?" "My records. That is not an answer. It's the only answer you're getting today." She hung up. I had revealed nothing new. Alyssa already knew the hospital had documented the calls, but now my mother understood that I might possess more than a written note. Within 10 minutes, my father called. "Do you have recordings?" he asked. I didn't answer. "Natalie, answer the question. You said you never spoke directly to the hospital. I'm asking whether somebody recorded private conversations without telling us. The discharge line announces that it's recorded." "I don't remember any announcement." "Then you don't remember the call?" He stopped. I waited. My father said, "You are playing a dangerous game with this family. No. If you share private recordings, there will be no coming back from that." That was probably true. Not because the calls were private in the way he meant. The hospital had announced the recording, and the records had been released to me as the patient involved. There would be no coming back, because everyone would hear him make the choice he had spent days denying. "I haven't shared anything," I said. "Promise me you won't." "No." He raised his voice for the first time. "Why are you doing this to us?" I held the phone away from my ear until he stopped. Then I said, "I'm not discussing tomorrow with you. You think that hotel will choose you over paying clients? The agreement already decided. I will stand in that lobby and explain exactly how you manipulated this. That's your choice." He gave a short laugh. "You've learned one phrase and decided it excuses everything." "No, I learned it from all of you." He ended the call. A few minutes later, Alyssa texted, "Dad says you might have audio. If you play anything at the dinner, I'm done with you." I read the message and didn't respond. She sent another. "You'll be humiliating Mom while she's supposed to celebrate retirement." Then another. "You can't claim to love people and plan something like that." I still didn't answer. The easier cruel choice would have been sending the files immediately. The easier peaceful choice would have been restoring the sponsorship. I was choosing the space between them. I would attend. I would let my parents decide what to do about the balance. I would not announce the hospital calls or use them in a speech, but if they stood in front of other people and called me unstable, dishonest, or mistaken, I would not protect that lie. The decision cost me something before I even used it. I knew Alyssa might keep her promise and cut me off. My father might never forgive the public loss of control. My mother might tell relatives for years that I had ruined the happiest period of her life. There was no version where I proved what happened and kept the family I had believed I belonged to. On Saturday afternoon, I dressed in a dark green knee-length dress with a high neckline that covered most of the healing incision. I put a small bandage over the part it didn't cover. I charged my phone completely. I tested each recording once with earbuds, then closed the folder. The dinner invitation said guests could arrive at 5:30. I left my apartment at 5:10 and walked south along North Tejon Street instead of driving. The air was cool, and the mountain was clear between the buildings. My parents' spare key tapped against my apartment key inside my purse. I had almost removed it before leaving. I didn't. That decision could wait until after the dinner. The Summit House lobby was busy when I arrived. 2 couples stood near the front desk with overnight bags. A family group I recognized from my parents' guest list was gathered beside the fireplace. They smiled when they saw me, but the smiles were careful. One woman hugged me and whispered, "I hope tonight can be peaceful." "So do I said. The elevator to the ballroom level was nearly full. I stood at the back while people discussed parking and the mountain view. Nobody mentioned the rate. When the doors opened, I could see the entrance to the Pikes Peak Ballroom at the end of the corridor. The ballroom doors were closed. Lena stood beside the check-in table with my parents in front of her. Alyssa was a few feet away holding the completed place cards. My mother saw me step off the elevator. Then my father turned and saw the phone in my hand. His eyes dropped to the screen, then returned to my face. "Put that away," he said. I slipped the phone into my purse. Lena was holding a tablet with the event account open. My mother stood beside her in a silver dress, clutching a small evening bag against her stomach. "There has been a misunderstanding," Mom said. "The employee rate is supposed to be restored." Lena replied, "There is no active employee sponsor on this reservation. Natalie is right there. She is attending as a guest." My father looked at me. "Tell her." I stepped closer to the check-in table. Guests continued arriving behind me. They spoke quietly as they moved toward the closed ballroom doors. A few checked their invitations as if they might have come to the wrong place. Lena said, "The public rate balance must be accepted before we can release the ballroom." My mother leaned toward me. "You've made your point. Fix it." "No." She looked around quickly. "This is not the place. You brought the issue to the ballroom entrance. We came expecting the hotel to behave reasonably. The hotel is following the agreement." My father turned to Lena. "We filed a complaint about how that agreement was presented. And the hotel responded yesterday," she said. "The signed terms remain valid. This is a family celebration. Nearly 100 people are waiting." "I understand. Then open the doors. I can't do that without payment authorization for the converted balance." My father's face reddened. "You're holding our guests in a hallway over an internal employee matter." "No," Lena said. "This is a client balance." The corridor had grown quiet. People weren't pretending not to listen anymore. They stood in small groups near the wall, watching my parents, Lena, and me. Alyssa approached with the place cards pressed against her chest. "Can we let people inside while this gets sorted out?" Lena shook her head. "Ballroom access begins after the balance is accepted." Alyssa looked at me. "Please." I said nothing. She stepped closer. "You wanted us to do the work. We did it. I handled the speeches. Mom handled the seating. Dad confirmed every guest. What else do you want?" "I don't want anything else." "Then put your name back." "No," my mother whispered. "Natalie." I looked at her. She glanced toward the guests and lowered her voice further. "Do not humiliate your father like this. I didn't withdraw his sponsorship. I withdrew mine. You knew what it would cost. Yes, a man who had worked with my father asked from behind us, 'Craig, is everything all right?' My father turned. 'It will be. My daughter had surgery recently and there's been some confusion.' I felt the room change. He had chosen the version from his email. My mother stepped in beside him. "Natalie has been overwhelmed," she said. "She misunderstood a scheduling mix-up and made an impulsive change to the hotel agreement. We're trying to correct it privately." Several people looked at the bandage above my neckline. A woman near the elevator said, "Do you need to sit down?" "No," I said. "I'm fine." My father faced Lena again. She was under anesthesia when this disagreement started. "The sponsorship withdrawal was submitted several days later," Lena said. "She wasn't defending me. She was correcting a contract fact." My father looked irritated. "That doesn't mean she was thinking normally." I said, "You told the hotel the same thing in your complaint, because it's true." "No, it isn't." Mom reached for my arm. I moved before she touched me. "Please stop," she said. "Nobody knowingly ignored the hospital." I waited. She continued because the silence made her uncomfortable. We had a complicated family event that afternoon. Everyone believed someone else had arranged the ride. Natalie was safe, but she has turned it into something it wasn't. My father nodded. I never even spoke directly to the hospital. I've said that repeatedly. A few people shifted their attention toward him. Alyssa said, "There were emergencies happening at the shower, too. Deliveries were late. People were waiting, and Mom was trying to manage everything. Nobody chose anything over Natalie. That was all three of them. Not one was uncertain anymore." My mother had called it a misunderstanding. My father had denied the call. Alyssa had turned gift opening into an emergency. They had committed to the false version in front of everyone they wanted me to protect them from. I opened my purse and took out my phone. My father said, "Don't." I looked at him. "You just said the hospital never called you." It didn't. I opened the audio folder. My mother's face changed. "Natalie, whatever you think you have, this isn't appropriate. I asked all three of you privately." Alyssa stepped toward me. "Put the phone away." I selected the first file. The automated announcement played through the phone speaker. "This call is being made through Memorial Hospital's recorded discharge line." The corridor became completely still. Then my mother's voice came through. "Yes." "Is Natalie all right?" Karen explained that I was medically cleared and needed an approved escort. The recording captured my mother asking, "How long can she stay there?" Then Karen explained the overnight admission. My mother's recorded answer came clearly. "Then do that." Mom closed her eyes. I let the call continue through Karen's direct question. "Mrs. Green, are you saying you will not be coming? I'm saying I can't leave right now." When the first recording ended, nobody spoke. I selected the second. My father's voice began. "Yes, I know. Diane just told me you might call." He stared at the floor. Karen explained that he was listed as my primary escort. The recording continued. "Are you able to leave now?" "No." "Is there a medical or transportation reason you're unable to come?" "No. We're about to open gifts." Someone behind me inhaled sharply. My father raised his head. "That is not the whole context." I held up one finger and let the file continue. Karen said she needed to document that he was declining. His voice answered, "You can document whatever you need." The call ended. The man who had asked whether everything was all right looked away from my father. I opened the third file. Alyssa's recorded voice sounded distracted from the first sentence. "Hi, I'm kind of in the middle of something." Karen went through the discharge requirement. Alyssa said, "Can Natalie just stay there until we're finished?" The hallway seemed smaller with every word. Then came the part Alyssa had spent days avoiding. "We haven't opened half the gifts, and we still need family photographs." On the recording, Karen asked whether she could leave. Alyssa replied, "I'm saying those things can't wait." Alyssa's grip tightened on the place cards. "Turn it off," she said. I didn't. Karen asked for a clear answer. "Are you coming to the hospital?" "No." The recording ended. I locked my phone and placed it back in my purse. Nobody spoke for several seconds. The same woman who had asked whether I needed to sit down looked at my mother. "You all knew?" Mom opened her mouth, but no answer came. My father turned toward me. "You had no right to play private conversations. The line announced it was recorded. That doesn't give you permission to humiliate us. I didn't ask you to deny it in front of everyone." Alyssa said, "You planned this." "No, I came to dinner. You had the files ready." "I had them ready because you told people I was unstable." My mother's eyes were wet. "We knew you were safe." I looked at her. "You knew the hospital would take responsibility after you refused. That isn't fair. It's on the recording." My father moved closer. "Restore the sponsorship now." "No." His voice rose. "You got what you wanted. I wanted you to tell the truth before this. You played the calls. Everyone heard them. What else is left? The balance." He stared at me. I didn't look away. Lena waited until he turned toward her. The converted balance is $9,600, she said. Would you like to provide payment authorization, or would you like to discuss cancellation? My mother wiped beneath one eye without disturbing the rest of her makeup. Craig, she said quietly. He didn't respond. People are here. I know. We can't cancel now. He looked toward the closed doors. Guests stood across the corridor in formal clothes, holding cards and small gifts. Some avoided his eyes. Others watched without pretending. My father asked Lena, "If we pay, does this end?" The ballroom opens and the event proceeds under the confirmed package. No additional charge, not beyond the public rate balance already stated. He reached into his jacket and took out his wallet. My card may flag that amount. We can process a bank authorization, Lena said. My mother touched his arm. Use the savings account. He looked at her. The camper account? Yes. His shoulders dropped slightly. For weeks they had spoken about that camper as if it were already parked in their driveway. My father looked at me once more. I said nothing. Lena handed him the tablet. He entered the account information while my mother stood beside him. The screen asked for both clients' authorization because both names were on the event agreement. My mother signed first. My father signed second. Lena reviewed the information and submitted it. A small circle turned on the screen. Then a green confirmation appeared. Payment accepted, she said. $9,600 left the fund they had planned to use for retirement travel. The amount wasn't a fine. It wasn't punishment created by the hotel. It was the public price of the dinner they had chosen to keep after my employee sponsorship ended. Lena signaled to the banquet captain through the glass panel beside the doors. The ballroom doors opened. Warm light spread across the corridor. The tables were set with white cloths and gold accents. Beyond the windows, the mountain was beginning to change color. Guests entered quietly. No one clapped. No one made a speech. They simply passed my parents and went inside. A banquet employee approached Alyssa. "We need the place cards arranged before everyone sits," she said. "Do you have the final seating list?" Alyssa looked toward me out of habit. I kept my hands at my sides. After a moment, she adjusted the stack against her chest. "Yes," she said. "I have it." She followed the employee into the ballroom. My mother took my father's arm. Together, they walked through the doors they had paid to open. I remained in the corridor for a moment. Lena collected the tablet and turned toward me. "Your place card is at table 3, she said. "Thank you. That is information I can give a guest." Her voice was dry enough that I almost smiled. Understood. I entered the ballroom after most of the guests. My parents were seated at the head table. Alyssa stood near the welcome table, sorting cards into rows, while 2 guests waited for her to find their names. She looked flustered. One card had been placed at the wrong table. Another guest had brought someone who wasn't on the final count. Normally, Alyssa would have waved me over without even asking. This time, she went to Lena. Lena showed her the seating chart and pointed toward an empty place at table 7. Alyssa moved 3 cards, spoke to the guests, and solved it. I sat at table 3. My place card said only Natalie Green. There was no hotel title beneath it and no note identifying me as the host's daughter. That was fine. A relative sitting beside me touched my wrist. "I'm sorry I sent you that message," she said. "Thank you." I didn't know. No. She looked toward my parents. They told us the hospital never reached anyone. I know. She seemed to expect me to say more. I opened my napkin and placed it across my lap. The dinner started 15 minutes late. The first course arrived. Servers moved between the tables with the same quiet efficiency they used for every event. Nobody treated my family differently because of what had happened outside. That mattered to me. The hotel had collected the balance and opened the room. It didn't punish my parents. It didn't rescue them either. Halfway through the salads, Alyssa appeared beside my chair. "The florist forgot one arrangement," she whispered. I looked toward the head table. There were flowers in front of my parents, flowers on the welcome table, and flowers on every guest table I could see. Which one? The small arrangement for the memory table. Call the florist. She already left. Then ask Lena what the hotel has available. Alyssa's eyes narrowed. You know what's in storage. I'm a guest. She glanced at the people seated around me. Can you please not do this now? I told you who to ask. She stood there for another second. Then she walked to Lena. The hotel had several simple glass vases available. Lena sent someone to retrieve one, and Alyssa moved flowers from 2 larger arrangements into it. The memory table was complete before the main course. No one needed me. Later, one of my father's former co-workers gave a speech. He talked about early service calls, winter storms, and the time my father repaired a heating system at a nursing facility after midnight. It was a good speech. My father had done work worth honoring. What he did to me didn't erase every decent thing he had done in his life. It also didn't require me to protect him from the price of this dinner. My mother's former supervisor spoke next. Then 2 friends shared shorter stories. Alyssa went last for the family. She stood at the microphone with her notes in one hand. Mom and Dad have always shown up for us, she began. The sentence stopped in the room. A few guests looked down at their tables. Alyssa saw it happen. Her eyes moved toward me, then back to her notes. They've worked hard, she continued. Tonight is about celebrating that. She shortened the rest of the speech. She thanked the guests and returned to her seat without mentioning me. My parents didn't make speeches. Dessert was served while the sky darkened beyond the ballroom windows. People began talking normally again. By coffee, the room sounded like a retirement dinner instead of a hearing. I stayed for the entire event. I spoke to relatives who approached me. I congratulated my parents when 2 of their former co-workers brought over a framed photograph. I did not discuss the hospital calls unless someone asked directly. Most people didn't. One man said, "Families make mistakes." I replied, "Yes." He waited for me to add something forgiving. I didn't. Near the end of the evening, my father walked past table 3 on his way to speak with a guest. He looked at me but kept moving. My mother avoided my side of the ballroom completely. Alyssa spent the evening solving practical problems. She confirmed the dessert count, found a missing coat, adjusted the speech order, and answered a question about leftover centerpieces. By the time the last guests left, she looked exhausted. I recognized the feeling. It was what family events had felt like for me for years. I waited near the lobby while hotel staff cleared the room. I wanted to thank Lena before leaving. My parents came out together. Mom stopped when she saw me. Was it worth it? She asked. My father looked toward the front desk, but he didn't stop her. What part? I asked. The money, the recordings, everyone staring at us. You denied the calls in front of them. You knew we would. I hoped you wouldn't. My father turned toward me then. You could have played those files for us privately. I asked you privately whether the calls happened. That isn't the same thing. No. It gave you a chance to tell the truth without hearing yourselves. He looked tired rather than angry now. We lost the camper. You spent the fund on the dinner because you forced us to choose. The hotel gave you the same choice after I withdrew. My mother shook her head. You have an answer for everything. No, I have an answer for this. Alyssa joined us carrying a box of place cards and unused programs. She looked at me. You got what you wanted. I wanted the dinner to function without my labor. Well, congratulations. She shifted the box against her hip. Are you going to help carry anything to the car? No. My mother stared at me. You're really going to stand there while your pregnant sister carries that? The box is full of paper. That isn't the point, Alyssa said. No, the point is, you still expect me to take over because I'm standing nearby. My father took the box from her. I've got it. Alyssa let go immediately. He carried it toward the elevator. My mother followed, then turned back. We will not forget tonight. I know. She waited as if the sentence might frighten me into one last correction. It didn't. The elevator doors closed behind them. Lena came out of the ballroom a few minutes later. Everything is settled, she said. There were no damages or additional charges. Good. The complaint response will be completed next week. Do you need anything else from me? No. I thanked her and walked home. On Monday, the hotel issued its written response to my father. It confirmed that I had followed the employee-host provision and that the converted balance had been properly charged. The complaint remained in the event file, but no action was taken against me. I read the response once and closed it. My father didn't apologize for filing the complaint. He sent me one message: "You may have followed policy. That does not make what you did right." I didn't answer. My mother went to her appointment with him. She posted a photograph in the family chat showing his truck in the clinic parking lot. "We managed," she wrote. It was meant as criticism. I saw it as information. A few days later, she called because she couldn't access her patient portal. I answered. "I need you to reset it," she said. "You can call the clinic. They'll keep me on hold, then stay on hold. I thought we were going to move forward. We haven't discussed that. So you plan to keep refusing every little thing?" "I plan to stop managing your appointments." She was silent. Then she said, "Fine." That evening, she sent a screenshot showing the clinic had reset her password. She had done it herself. My father's retirement office contacted him about another missing form. He forwarded the email to me without a message. I replied, "Please contact the office directly." He didn't respond. A week later, my mother mentioned in the family chat that he had hired a retirement paperwork service for 2 hours. He complained about the fee, but the forms were completed. Alyssa stayed mostly silent. She removed the heart she had placed beneath my mother's message about restoring the hotel rate. I noticed because the reaction count changed, but she never acknowledged it. Then she stopped including me in family planning messages. My mother treated that as another injury I had caused. "Alyssa doesn't feel safe asking you for anything," she said during one call. "She can speak to me without asking for work. You know she needs support right now. Then support her." "We do." "Good." "That was always your role too." "No. It was the role you assigned me." My mother ended the call. For several weeks, there were no invitations, no favors, and no casual photographs. The quiet cost more than I expected. I missed my parents' kitchen. I missed my father sending me pictures of badly worded signs. I missed Alyssa calling from a store because she couldn't decide between 2 lamps. Missing those things didn't make the old arrangement healthy. It only meant some parts had been real. One evening, I came home and found an envelope pushed beneath my apartment door. Inside was the gray scarf Alyssa had left in my kitchen and later worn to the dinner. There was no note. I folded it and placed it in the back of my closet. The next morning, my mother texted me, "Your father and I would like to speak with you. We are not asking for help with anything." I waited until the next day before replying. "We can meet Sunday at the coffee shop near my apartment." My mother answered, "That works." She didn't ask me to come to the house. She didn't change the time or suggest I bring paperwork. On Sunday, they were already seated when I arrived. My father had coffee. My mother had tea and a folded sheet of paper in front of her. I sat across from them. Mom touched the paper but didn't slide it toward me. We wrote some things down because we don't want to avoid the important parts. "All right." She looked at my father. He began. I answered the hospital call. It was the first time he had said it without being forced by a recording. "The nurse told me you were ready," he continued. "I understood that I was listed as your escort. I chose not to leave." His hand stayed around his coffee cup. Then I lied because admitting that sounded as bad as it was. "I also filed a complaint at your job to pressure you." That was wrong. I waited. He didn't add anything about the shower being hectic. He didn't mention the camper. My mother unfolded the paper. "When the nurse called me, I asked whether the hospital could keep you. I knew someone needed to come. I decided you were safe enough, and I stayed with Alyssa." Her voice shook slightly, but she continued. "Afterward, I kept calling it confusion because I wanted the result without admitting the choice." She placed the paper back on the table. "We are sorry." I asked, "What do you expect me to do with that?" "Nothing today," my father said. That answer mattered. My mother said, "We would like contact with you. We understand it won't be the same. It can't be the same." I know. I'm not managing appointments, paperwork, transportation, or events. My father nodded. "I'm keeping the paperwork service. Even though you hate paying for it?" I hate the forms more. That almost made me smile. My mother said, I've written my portal password somewhere safe. Please don't tell me where. I wasn't going to. We sat there for nearly an hour. They asked about my follow-up appointment. I told them my thyroid results were reassuring and that I was healing normally. My mother cried quietly when I said that, but she didn't make me comfort her. Before we left, my father asked, Are the recordings still on your phone? Yes. Are you planning to share them again? No. He nodded. He didn't ask me to delete them. That was the first test. The second came 2 weeks later. My mother invited me to lunch at their house. She sent the time, asked whether I had any food restrictions, and did not include another request. When I arrived, my father was on the phone with the retirement paperwork service. A form lay open on the table. He covered the phone and said, I'm handling it. I didn't ask. I know. I'm reminding myself. Mom had arranged her next medical appointment for a morning when Dad could drive her. She had also written the clinic number beside the calendar instead of adding a reminder to my phone. Lunch was awkward. We talked about the weather, the hotel, and a neighbor's new fence. My mother started to ask whether I could check an insurance email, stopped herself, and said, No, I'll call them tomorrow. I didn't offer. She called them the next day. A month later, my parents invited me to dinner at a restaurant. They arrived on time. My father had made the reservation himself. My mother brought no folder. We were learning how to sit together when nobody needed me to complete something. It wasn't warm at first, but it was honest. Alyssa took a different path. She didn't apologize. About 6 weeks after the retirement dinner, she called and said, I still think playing those recordings was cruel. I understand. Do you regret it? No. She went quiet. I handled all the dinner work after you walked away. I saw that. You could have helped. Yes. But you chose not to. Yes. She seemed frustrated that I wouldn't argue. Finally, she said, I don't know how to have a relationship with you now. We could start without assignments. What does that mean? It means you call because you want to talk to me, not because you need me to arrange something. That sounds like another rule. It's a boundary. She gave a short laugh. You really like that word now. I like knowing what I'm agreeing to. We didn't speak again for several weeks. Then she sent me a photograph of 2 lamps in a store. Which one? She wrote. I looked at the picture. Before I could answer, another message arrived. Never mind. I picked the blue one. I replied, Good choice. She sent a thumbs up. That was most of our contact for a while. She handled her appointments. She asked our parents for help directly instead of asking me to coordinate them. When our mother couldn't help, Alyssa made another plan. The distance remained. I stopped trying to close it by becoming useful. At work, my father's complaint stayed in the closed event file. It didn't disappear, but neither did my record of following the agreement. Lena treated me exactly as she had before. The next employee host event that crossed my desk belonged to another staff member sponsoring an anniversary dinner for his parents. I explained the withdrawal provision clearly, watched all 3 people initial it, and moved on. I never sponsored another event for my own family. I also updated my hospital information. I added a coworker as my emergency contact after asking her first. We discussed exactly what she was agreeing to. She said yes, and I believed her because she treated the responsibility like a real one. I kept the 3 recordings in a protected folder, along with the hospital cover sheet. I didn't play them again. My family knew they existed. That was enough. The money stayed gone. My parents delayed buying a camper. My father occasionally mentioned listings, but he never asked me to calculate financing again. They took shorter trips in their car and paid for hotels themselves. My mother once said, We would have had the camper by now. I answered, I know. She looked as if she might continue. Then she said, The dinner was our choice. That was the 3rd test. Months passed before my parents' apology began to feel different from a speech. The difference came from repetition. My father hired help before calling me. My mother arranged transportation before inviting me anywhere. They asked whether I was available and accepted no without demanding a reason. Once my mother slipped and said, You're better at this, while holding an insurance form. I replied. "That doesn't make it mine." She took the form back. "You're right. No tears, no punishment, no family group message, just a correction. That was as close to repair as I was willing to come. I didn't return to being the daughter who kept everyone comfortable. I became a daughter they could know only if they carried their own weight. For years, I thought belonging came from being necessary. It didn't. Being necessary had only made it easy for my family to ignore what things cost me. If this story stayed with you, please subscribe and tell me which city you're watching from." One Sunday evening, I returned from dinner with my parents and stood inside my apartment door. The ceramic key dish was still on the small table. I picked up my key ring and turned the brass key with the strip of green tape between my fingers. My parents had changed how they behaved, but they no longer needed me to hold access to their house. I didn't need the promise hidden inside that key either. I slid it off the ring and placed it in an envelope addressed to Diane and Craig. I would give it to them the next time we met. Then I removed my parents' spare and hung only my apartment key on the wall hook.